The story kicks off in a jungle in East Africa where a panicking soldier is screaming that this has got to be a joke. Right then a precise projectile tags the poor guy's dome, completely sending him to the lobby in the pitch dark. Running for their lives, his buddies fire blindly behind them, complaining that nobody warned them about this boss-level threat. Pure terror takes over the squad when they realize the legendary Grim Reaper is hunting them in the shadows. Freaking out, another marksman just starts spraying and praying in every direction, hoping to land a hit on the beast. But the clapback is fast and completely silent, shutting down his defense before he could even aim down sights. All that's left is a groan of pain as his HP drops to 0 in a flash. Dropped and defeated on the ground, the guy becomes just another stat under the cruel fighter's boots. In the middle of the warzone, rumors spread about mythical operatives who can single-handedly flip the outcome of entire battles. The frontline soldiers, absolutely terrified of getting wiped out, call them demons, beasts, or reapers. All these edgy nicknames are actually aimed at one apathetic contract cleaner, the terrifying kid named Masamune. In that brutal combat zone, every single one of those codenames points straight to him. A bit further away, a wooden shack is acting as a makeshift base for the platoon. Masamune quietly walks in to debrief after wrapping up his mission. The squad leader, Zach Davis, notices the kid walking in and points out that he's finally back from patrol. Gathered around the table, the hired guns Hans Klein, Mayu Mochida, and Max Anderson are waiting for the intel. Standing next to Victor Knox, Aisha Sidibe, and Ethan Connor, leader Zach demands that Masamune hand over the scouting report. The boy steps up, totally chill, to break down the patrol detail. Straight to the point, he reports that the enemy troop had 20 guys, and every single one of them was eliminated without exception. Suddenly, a heavy fist slams the wooden table, jump-scaring everyone in the room. Furious, Victor Knox demands to know who gave him the green light to go rogue like that. Masamune claps back that he was literally just following orders to scout the area and reduce enemy numbers if possible. Barking mad, the bulky dude yells that the commander never ordered a total squad wipe. The boss immediately diffuses the situation, stating he doesn't care about the full wipeout and just wants the mission data. Victor just mutters some salty complaints about the kid's attitude and shuts up. Moving on with the intel, the MC highlights that the enemy soldiers and their gear were absolute garbage eater. He noticed they were moving without even considering the possibility of an ambush in the area. Because of that, he found a structure 1,000 meters away with no obvious threats, choosing to head back before the guards spotted him. Happy with the intel, the commander gives it a thumbs up. With that, he praises the hustle and tells the squad to gear up and roll out like they planned. Trekking through the dense dark woods, the leader suddenly throws his hand up and signals a full stop. Masamune scans the environment, getting a weird feeling that something is off about this route. The MC warns them that the area feels super sketchy, catching the commander's attention. When they check the downed enemies on the ground, the math only adds up to 19 bodies in the area. On edge, the kid repeats that he definitely clapped 20 enemies and one body is missing. One of the teammates suggests it was just bad math, but Aisha disagrees, saying the kid doesn't make those kinds of mistakes. Victor scoffs, sarcastically claiming he probably just forgot to finish one of the enemies off. Even if some guys are brushing it off, Aisha doubles down that they need to investigate this carefully. The commander stops to think for a sec, calculating the threat level of the situation. Turning to his scout, the boss asks for his take on the mystery of the vanishing body. Breaking it down, the MC points out that defeated guys don't just walk away, meaning someone else pulled up to grab the body. Because of that, it's painfully obvious the enemy squad already knows they are chilling in these woods. Facing the facts, he suggests the safest play for the team is to fall back immediately. Yelling in rage, the boss shoots that down, declaring that retreating isn't an option. Locked in, he insists that pushing forward is the only route left for them right now. The commander warns that he won't give the enemies time to regroup and wanted the MC's opinion with that exact mindset. Even so, the kid tries to argue back to ensure the squad doesn't get totally wiped. But the boss glares at him, asking if his apathetic little minion actually has the guts to disobey. Faced with that intimidating look, the MC chooses to zip it and drop the argument. An old memory pops into his head, reminding him that he should have his own desires, just follow orders. Back in the day, his instructor drilled into him that hesitating in the heat of battle means an unavoidable game over. Snapping back to reality, the kid lowers his head and mumbles that it was no big deal. Ticked off by the pushback, the boss makes it clear that his word is absolute law. Right then, he yells that a paid operative only has to execute whatever the leader commands. No questions asked, the kid silently takes the harsh scolding from his boss. With the order to push forward locked in, the rest of the fighters nod and start marching. Quietly, the youth trails the squad, keeping his awareness dialed to the max. Along the way, his gut was screaming at him to fall back, but the duty to follow the rules was stronger. Just up ahead, a massive, mysterious facility glows in the dark of the night. A few squad members scope out the area using long-range visor. Suddenly, one of the operatives spots something totally out of the ordinary in the starry sky. Using a silent hand signal, he warns the crew about a potential threat dropping in from above. Masamune notices the panic and quick draws his weapon while aiming at the sky. In that split second, he's mind-blown when he recognizes the flying machine zooming in. A military surveillance drone comes hovering right over the treetops directly above the squad. Confused, the MC realizes the commander was completely clueless about this incoming problem. This sparks a major red flag that the boss might be hiding other critical intel from the team. But the drone quickly locks onto the intruders in the forest. In the blink of an eye, the machine unleashes an absolute bullet hell on the group. Diving behind a tree for cover, the kid is shocked to see the drone is packing heavy caliber heat. Freaking out in the chaos, he begs his leader for an updated game plan. However, the spot where the boss was standing a second ago is now completely empty. Realizing the commander bailed and left them to get clapped, the MC sees the red laser sight lock right onto him. With insane agility, the kid manages to dodge the incoming danger. Right now isolated and with zero backup, he braces for the absolute worst-case scenario in this fight. Analyzing the attack patterns, Masamune notices the drone's accuracy is way too perfect to handle bullet recoil normally, meaning this is next-gen tech. Squinting into the distance, the youth tracks the flying machine, trying to figure out why it's so ridiculously overpowered. Right then, he spots the logo stamped on its metal frame and recognizes the name Ironclad Dominion, a top-tier military tech corp. Seeing the megacorporation's brand, the MC gets sweaty palms, realizing how crazy it is to fight such busted hardware. Trying to outrun the drone's relentless spam, the fighter dodges projectiles that are shredding the dirt all around him. Soon after, Masamune plans to sprint into a thicker part of the jungle to try and break the machine's radar lock. He realizes the drone has an annoying auto-tracking nav system, making it insanely hard to just hide in the bushes. Using the cover, the MC uses the map to his advantage, moving fast while baiting the enemy into a trap. Aiming his weapon, he figures the thick canopy will make it impossible for the machine to keep a steady flight altitude. With one precise shot, the projectile hits the drone dead center through the branches, causing a massive fireball in the sky. Immediately after, the scrap metal rains down, permanently ending the brutal spam attacks on the young hitman. With the stress gone, Masamune figures one machine isn't too tough and decides the big brain play is to head back to base ASAP. Suddenly, a super weird noise echoing nearby grabs his attention, putting his escape plan on pause. Gripping his gear tight, the kid takes a defensive stance to figure out what that sketchy sound in the bushes is. Right then, a deafening noise coming from the exact direction of the camp makes him wonder what kind of mess his teammates stepped into. Insanely heavy footsteps start echoing through the woods, causing mini earthquakes as a giant figure rolls up in the dark. Camouflaged Masamune is dumbfounded when he sees a colossal humanoid armored mech stepping out of the foliage like a final boss. Peeking from behind a tree, the youth carefully analyzes the mysterious machine's path, trying to understand the new threat. He wonders to himself if the thing is a piloted mech suit or some independent groundware A built by the corp. Deciding to make a move, the MC aims his rifle, hoping to delete the threat with a sneak attack before it spots him. But the shot just pings off the enemy's thick armor and bounces away without making a single dent in the metal. Terrified, Masamune realizes the opponent's armor is way too thick to get pierced by standard rifle round. Analyzing its slow walk, he guesses from the machine's massive weight that there's no human pilot inside driving it. The MC thinks the giant's lack of speed makes it less of a threat than the drones, but quickly spots a crazy new detail. Right then, mini-drones pop up around the armored colossus, proving this big guy is acting as a mobile command hub. Not wasting a second, the youth drops his useless rifle in the dirt and gets ready to use his sidearms for a close-range brawl. Gripping both short-barreled weapons tightly, he readies up to unleash a rapid-fire barrage on the skybots. Moving quickly across the wet forest floor, the kid sprints to break line of sight from the enemy radars. Going full trigger-happy with both guns, the hitman starts tagging the little support drones flanking the giant. Landing crispy headshots, he manages to wreck the support flyers, stripping the metal boss of its air superiority. Jumping midair, the operative keeps firing at the last remaining drone to completely clear the airspace. Suddenly, the giant mech's red sensor flares up, locking onto the MC's location mid-jump. Using his momentum, Masamune delivers a heavy flying kick to the drone, slamming it brutally into the dirt. The drone hits the ground and pops, leaving nothing but soot and scrap metal scattered across the wet jungle floor. Totally calm, the kid turns to face the metal colossus and warns it that it's now the only one left standing in these woods. Standing before the tech giant, the hitman waits for the enemy's move with his sidearms drawn. Through its speakers, the machine praises the kid's adaptability and actually calls him by his edgy mercenary title. Mind-blown, Masamune asks how the heck this robot, or the guy controlling it, knows his real identity out here in the field, but the robotic voice coldly points out that despite his skills, the kid ended up dropping his guard at the absolute worst time. In that exact moment, a gun barrel peeks silently out of the dark and fires a cowardly cheap shot right at the young operative. Hit squarely in the back, the MC feels the brutal impact of the round tearing through his HP as red liquid spills everywhere. Shocked, he realizes the attack came from behind and that he just got backstabbed by someone he fully trusted in his own squad. Staring at his red-stained hands, Masamune tries to process why he just got taken out in such a dirty way. With zero energy left to stay standing, the kid's body hits the freezing ground hard as his screen starts fading to black. Collapsed in the dirt, he realizes way too late that there was a traitor in the crew who leaked their intel and led them right into this trap. As his timer runs out, the youth flashes back to the faces of all his teammates, trying to figure out which one of them set up the gank. Stretching a shaky hand across the wet soil, he tries to force out a few last words in a desperate attempt to hold on. Surrounded by surveillance drones, the hitman remembers the ruthless rule that an apathetic operative is only supposed to follow orders until the very end. Flashbacks of his old instructor teaching him elimination techniques and forbidding him from using those skills on regular civilians pop into his head. Back in that hardcore training arc, the master drilled in that doubting yourself in battle just gives the enemy a free win. The old tutor always said that hesitating in a war zone is the fastest speedrun to meeting your maker. Then the bossy voice of leader Zach Davis echoes in his mind, repeating that hired guns just need to blindly follow the given rules. The kid bitterly realizes that living like an NPC without his own goals stopped him from seeing the silent betrayal coming. Staring down the lasers locked onto his exhausted body, he wonders if his entire playthrough was just a mistake from the start. A second later, the final blasts from the drones tag the kid on the ground, permanently deleting any chance of him staying in the game. Choking on his own red liquid, the youth curses his terrible RNG and wishes for a respawn to do everything totally different. On that brutal day, the terrifying fighter known as the apathetic hitman ended up meeting a bitter game over in the war zone. Suddenly, an angry dude's voice screams the kid's name, shattering a deep afternoon nap. Yelling at the top of his lungs, the furious teacher shouts Masamune Corona's name to wake him up for good. Startled, the MC jumps up out of his seat, yelling yes super loud, still shook by how real that nightmare felt. Staring blankly at the confusing room, the youth tries to process this crazy server swap in the blink of an eye. He realizes he's sitting at a standard school desk right in the middle of a noisy classroom full of students. Looking down at his own school supplies on the wooden desk, Masamune asks himself if everything he experienced until now was just a crazy VR simulation. Rocking a completely unamused face, the glasses-wearing teacher sarcastically asks if the kid was having a nice little nap in the middle of class. Keeping his cool, the MC replies in flawless English, thanking him and saying he actually had a really great rest. The entire class goes dead silent at the kid's flex of replying in a foreign language, completely clueless as to what just happened. Whispers start echoing among the students who stare at their classmates, super curious about his weird new vibe. The teacher gets insanely triggered, veins popping on his forehead as he repeats the sarcastic comeback he just heard from the student. A bit later, the school bell rings loud in the halls, declaring the end of the period and saving the MC from catching an even worse lecture. Walking down the halls, Masamune rubs his head, thinking about what an epic fail his first class was after that hyperrealistic bad dream. Right then, a student named Sakura Shiraishi walks up, saying she had no clue he was cracked at English. Looking closely at her, the MC remembers her name and realizes it's been a hot minute since he had a friendly chat with this girl. Suddenly, some punk shoves the girl out of the way, super aggressively telling her to move out of the lane right now. Laughing it up with his goons, the bully mocks the MC's vibe and tells him to follow them so they can settle things. Recognizing the infamous Nobusuke Hirakawa, the youth cynically thinks that if this is just an illusion, the devs put way too much detail into the graphics. Sakura anxiously asks if Masamune is okay, and he just replies that he fully understands the situation. In that moment, the MC remembers that back in middle school, he strictly followed his dad's #1 rule, and that rule was no matter how much they trolled him, he was determined to never hit back. Because of that, these bullies just kept farming him for easy bullying points on a daily basis. Nobusuke Hirakawa grabs the MC's shirt and furiously complains that the kid is way too boring. Flexing, the bully asks how a talentless background NPC dares to try and look cool in front of the girls. Then the troublemaker winds up his fist, declaring the kid needs an educational beatdown right this second. In that split second, he throws a massive punch right in the middle of the hallway. But the MC calculates that if all this really is an illusion, there's absolutely zero penalty for fighting back. Right then, he casually dodges and literally dares his rival to try swinging again. The punk gets insanely mad at whiffing his attack and grinds his teeth in pure rage. Because of that, he screams at the MC to stop acting so high and mighty around him. His cronies start cheering in the back, thinking the punch actually connected. However, the fist lands straight on Masamune's forehead and the MC doesn't even budge from the impact. Suddenly, Nobusuke screams in agony, realizing he just completely wrecked his own hand. The scout casually explains that the human forehead is basically known as one of the hardest hitboxes on the body, and that if you hit the wrong spot, the guy taking the recoil damage is the one who threw the punch. Nobusuke grips his busted hand, terrified and wondering if this kid's skull is made of tiny. Furious and embarrassed, the bully charges in again and tries to land an aggressive side kick, but the MC quickly lifts his leg and blocks the strike using his own shin as a shield. The sheer force of the hard block makes a sickeningly painful sound for the guy who threw the kick. Because of that, the MC adds that the exact same rule applies to a trash kick that hits the wrong part of the block, and it's the attacker who ends up paying the price with massive physical damage. One of the goons watches the scene completely horrified, noticing how effortlessly the MC defended himself. Unable to handle the pain, Nobusuke and his squad start running away from the zone in a total panic. The MC quietly watches them scatter while the bully screams in terror for him not to chase them. Staring at his own palm, Masamune notices that in this low-level schoolboy body, even blocking hurts a lot. Curious about the physical discomfort, he starts wondering if this server might actually be reality. With that, the youth finally realizes that what just went down definitely was a temporary hallucination. Meanwhile, Sakura runs over to him, wanting to figure out what just happened in the hallway. Sakura stops running and stares at him, absolutely shocked by the massive character development she just witnessed. The girl calls the MC by his name kinda shyly as she steps closer. Looking up at the sky through the window, Masamune asks himself if he really just time traveled. The MC tries to process the insane idea that he actually respawned back in his middle school days. Anxious, the girl points out that she saw Nobusuke and his crew running away looking pretty banged up. Because of that, she asks straight up if the youth did something to the school's troublemakers. Masamune firmly denies it, claiming he did do anything, and that they just hurt themselves by being dumb. The girl is amazed by the excuse but goes along with it and asks if the MC is feeling okay. Right after, the youth calmly suggests that they should both head back to class. Sakura shyly agrees and starts following the MC down the school hallway. The girl walks deep in thought, trying to decode the weird vibe of what she just heard. Stepping into class 3, Masamune takes his seat and remembers he's currently 15 years old. A classmate walks up to Sakura asking where she was hiding until now. Giving her friend an awkward smile, the girl vaguely replies that she wasn't anywhere special. Watching the other students chat from afar, the MC remembers that back in the day his friend's list was basically empty. The youth recalls that he used to spend his days bottling up his feelings, which made things way easier for the bullies. He scopes out the class and realizes this sweet conversation with Sakura is totally missing from his original save file. Just then the girl turns around and calls her classmate by his name super nicely. Worried, she tells him that if there's anything stressing him out or making him tense, he's totally free to vent to her. The MC is super confused by her attitude and wonders internally why she's even talking to him like this. But he remembers that in his previous playthrough this girl would never have spoken to him so softly. Suddenly the school siren blasts, kicking off the lecture about World War II. The teacher starts writing on the chalkboard while the students get settled at their desks. Chilling quietly, Masamune realizes that this whole school environment is 100% real. He clearly remembers the pain of getting eliminated in the war zone and confirms that he is currently alive in a past era. The MC finds himself stuck in this low-level teenage body without understanding how this time travel glitch even works. He figures he has no regrets but admits he never actually wanted to catch such a tragic game over on the battlefield. Because of that, he decides that the war is still raging on, and since he got a fresh retry, he's going to play it way better this time. Suddenly, the senior teacher's raspy voice barks Masamune's name, cutting off the kid's internal monologue. The teacher complains, clearly annoyed, demanding some respect and asking why the student is zoning out during the lesson. After being told to stop staring at the wall, the youth apologizes to the senior teacher. Leaning on his desk like a boss, the teacher makes the rest of the students sweat a little due to how strict he is. Ignoring the lecture, the young scout decides his only real main quest right now is exposing the traitor. He remembers that modern weaponry and decides he's going to start grinding right now for when that threat drops again. Suddenly the teacher sneers and asks if the youth is actually paying attention to his lecture. Then the master challenges the kid to name the submachine gun used by the Germans in the Second Global Conflict. The whole class starts sweating at the hardcore trivia since these kids have never studied military weapon stats. Without missing a beat, Masamune calmly tells the teacher the weapon was the legendary MP40. The educator is shook by how fast and accurate the answer was but decides to crank up the difficulty level. With a bossy tone, he asks for the exact ammo caliber and the magazine capacity. The MC fires back instantly that it was 9mm by 19 parabellum holding 32 rounds, and adds that in an actual firefight the meta is to only load 30 rounds to avoid jamming the mechanism. The teacher goes speechless, reluctantly confirming that the Gigabrain answer is totally correct. Whispers erupt all over the room as every student is mind-blown by the kid's insane weapon knowledge. Sakura looks at her classmate absolutely mesmerized, thinking this guy is a total encyclopedia on war stuff. The educator calls out Masamune Corona and orders him to report to the principal's office right after class, leaving him stunned by the sudden command. When asked if it's about his behavior just now, the educator replies that his attitude is definitely an issue, but this current problem has nothing to do with class. While walking behind the teacher down the school hallway, Sakura watches the MC from a distance, looking super worried. Peeking from behind the hallway wall, the girl keeps quietly tracking the MC's movements. Standing at the principal's door, the teacher steps aside to let the youth walk in and face whatever boss fight is waiting inside. Walking into the room, they see the school principal, the bully Shinsuke, rocking a cast on his arm, the politician Yuzo Hirakawa, and Masamune's dad. Noticing his kid walk in, the dad calls his name in a serious but calm voice. The MC is shook to see such a familiar face right in front of him and mumbles, asking if that's really his dad. In that moment, he remembers that during his middle school years his old man was still alive and at 100% HP. The youth tries his best to hold back his feelings as it hits him that he really got a second chance in the past. Pointing furiously, the bully screams at the principal that Masamune is the only reason his right arm is wrecked. Even with zero proof, the punk keeps pointing fingers, claiming the MC is the villain who sneak attacked him. Flexing his status, the politician introduces himself as Yuzo Hirakawa, Shinsuke's overpowered dad. The young scout just stares at him, dead serious, standing his ground without showing a single ounce of fear. Right then he recalls that this kid's dad was actually a local politician with massive VIP influence in the area. Starting the chat, the politician admits his kid isn't perfect but asks if Shinsuke really started the brawl at school. The MC calmly claps back, saying he didn't do anything crazy. He just blocked the bully's attack and the guy hurt himself trying to land a hit. Screaming enraged, Shinsuke calls the MC a liar and swears there are other victims who got clapped by him around here. Suddenly the office door gets busted open and the rest of his goons walk in, yelling that they're ready to testify. Showing off their fake bandages, the goons swear they also took dirty hits from the youth. Faced with such cringeworthy acting, the MC just sighs, having exactly zero patience for this whole circus. Absolutely terrified of the politician's clout, the principal begging for forgiveness and promising to expel the MC right away. Hearing this insane penalty without a proper review, Masamune's dad gets mad and questions the school's garbage logic. Right then the teacher whispers to the principal, pointing out that the MC literally never gets into these kinds of fights. Trying to nerf the punishment, the principal suggests to the politician that since it's his first offense, the youth should just get on his knees and beg for mercy. Masamune's dad stares at his kid with a heavy, worried look, sharing the thick tension filling the room. Using a arrogant voice, the politician agrees it was just kid stuff and says he doesn't actually want to get the boy banned from school. He adds that expelling him is the easy way out and that adults need to teach the youth how the real server works. Flashing a toxic smirk, the politician clearly loves abusing his admin powers to humiliate the student's humble family. In that moment of max disrespect, the guy points his finger and coldly orders the MC to get on his knees right there. Laughing mockingly in the background, the bully eats up the W, while the principal keeps sweating bullets next to the vent. Shinsuke's goons also take the chance to troll, laughing at the degrading scene the MC is about to go through. Masamune starts to speak up to reject the trash demand but gets stopped by his dad's arm blocking his way. With a calm and rock-solid expression, the dad calls the boy's name, signaling that he's taking over the lobby. He then asks his kid if it's really true that he never fought back against the attacks from those bullies at school. Keeping it 100, the youth just nods, confirming he followed the rules and literally never countered an attack. After hearing the honest truth, the dad closes his eyes for a sec, looking like he fully understands how rigged this whole situation is. Suddenly, the man slowly drops to his knees on the cold office floor, leaving everyone in the room stunned by his move. Pressing his hands hard against the floor, he gets ready to pull off the ultimate display of apology and surrender. Touching his forehead straight to the tile, the guy delivers a humiliating apology in front of all the toxic bullies. The principal and the teacher watch the dramatic scene, completely mind-blown by the dad's extreme play. Masamune stares at the scene with a mix of pure rage and shock, watching his own dad degrade himself like that for his sake. With his head to the floor, the boy's dad takes all the aggro and begs for genuine forgiveness for whatever trouble his kid supposedly caused. Shinsuke and his squad of delinquents flash toxic triumphant grins, watching the older guy bow to them. Happy with the surrender, the politician mocks the situation, saying small business owners usually take a while to learn how the world really works. Staying folded on the floor in absolute silence, the man patiently waits for this painful cutscene to end. Walking out of the conference room, the suited politician says goodbye, casually dropping that he can hook the guy up with a nice plot near the train station if he wants. The suit finishes by bragging that he's got the right connections, and it's super easy to pass out government perks to people who know how to obey. Watching from the corner of his eye, Shinsuke flashes a toxic W smile, stoked that he managed to completely humiliate his rival's family. Rocking a dark expression with clenched fists, the young scout is burning with internal rage, seeing his beloved dad get treated like trash. Right after the office door gets slammed shut by the arrogant Vips, leaving the room in a heavy dead silence. The kid tries to comfort his dad, softly saying the toxic squad finally left the lobby. Slowly, the man starts getting up from the office floor, pushing off his legs to get back on his feet. Looking at his kid with absolute pride, the dad congratulates him for strictly following the rule to never return toxicity with violence. The youth quietly nods at his words, even though deep down has making a hardcore vow that the meta is about to change. Outside the office, Sakura waits nervously in the hall, wondering if her classmate is actually surviving all this drama. Peeking subtly through the crack in the door, the girl tries to check out what's going down inside just to make sure he's okay. Suddenly, the main hall doors swing open, showing the bullies finally leaving the school. Strutting like a winner, the bully brags about how pathetic it was to see the old man fold, while his dad smiles proudly. Ripping off the fake cast in disgust, the kid laughs about how easy it is to exploit the rules when you have admin-level clout. The politician tells his kid to stop the trolling and gets all philosophically arrogant, claiming some NPCs are just born to crawl in the mud. Laughing out loud at the snobby comment, Shinsuke confidently swears he never wants to end up broke like that family. Completely frozen behind the wall, Sakura goes into shock as she discovers the whole truth behind the bully's fake report. Right then, the bully walks right past without realizing his classmate just eavesdropped on his entire toxic master plan. Suddenly, the girl gets jump-scared when she bumps Facetto face with an unexpected person who spawns right next to her in the quiet hall. Shinsuke spots Sakura and angrily wonders if she just heard his whole dirty trap against his rival. Meanwhile, Masamune is walking home surrounded by an intense aura of pure rage over everything he just saw in the school office. Grinding his teeth with massive spite, Shinsuke curses in his head, unable to handle a nobody NPC like Masamune standing up to him. Nighttime quickly drops on the busy city with the neon signs of a karaoke spot glowing super bright in the dark. Chilling with his gang in a private karaoke vibe room, the bully gets asked why he's looking so salty. Jumping up out of nowhere, he aggressively orders his goons to prep their sketchy inventory right away. Sitting back down on the plush couch, the kid demands they hand over the most hardcore stuff they've got stashed in the room. Pretty weirded out by the wild request, one of his buddies asks if he's planning to take down a raid boss with something that potent. Calmly lighting up a smoke with the help of one of the girls, the bully drops a wicked smile and reveals he's planning to use the item on a girl. Flashing a totally evil look, the kid savors his toxic master plan without a single ounce of morals. Shinsuke Hirakawa, burning with rage, swears he's going to drop an unforgettable banhammer on those two losers who don't know their place in the tier list. Meanwhile, Sakura Shiraishi is chilling in her room, staring blankly at her school supplies on the desk while trying to process the crazy events of the day. The next day, the school bell rings loud in the halls, declaring the end of another grinding session of classes. Sakura quickly walks up and asks Masamune if things went smoothly after he got summoned to the principal's office. Masamune Corona calmly replies that it's not something she needs to stress over, only getting a shy little nod in return. Walking next to him, the girl secretly wonders if her classmate is actually okay, remembering the enemy has managed to get other students permabanned before. The young girl stares at him wondering if it's just her imagination or if his entire vibe just got a massive upgrade overnight. In her eyes, Masamune looks way more leveled up than he ever did in their previous chats. When they hit a fork in the road, the girl says goodbye, pointing out her route goes that way, and locking in a meetup for the next day. The girl waves super friendly as she starts heading down her path home. Masamune keeps walking his solo route down the sidewalk under the clear afternoon sky. In that moment, the youth stops walking and thoughtfully stares back at the path the girl just took. The MC realizes he had never seen Sakura look genuinely worried before the moment he respawned in the past. Right after the MC reaches the gates of the Kuroishi dojo, his family's martial arts sitting formally on the padded mats in front of his dad, the youth answers the older man's serious summon. The dad stares at him dead serious and asks if the kid is 100% sure he didn't throw the first punch in the school brawl. Masamune remembers he was always bound by the hardcore rule of never attacking anyone, which became the core of his obedience even when he classed up to a hitman. Back in his military days, it was enough to just blindly follow the dev's patch notes from the commanders without asking any questions. But the youth starts wondering if living like an NPC with no personal goals was really the best strat for his playthrough. Even so, the youth doesn't want to break his family's rules unless it's an absolute emergency. Getting back to the chat, the MC repeats that the bully tried to strike him and ended up dealing self-damage on the attempt. The older man asks why the enemy tried to attack him in the first place, and the boy replies there was literally zero valid reason for the aggro. The dad listens to the excuse quietly and just confirms he gets the picture. Because of that, the guy repeats the unbreakable rule of never using violence against peaceful NPCs and demands the youth never break that code. Right after, they both clap their hands in a classic respect emote to wrap up the serious talk. The dad definitively closes that topic and gets ready for the next phase. With decisive movements, the guy starts rolling up the decorative scroll hanging on the dojo's wall. Revealing a hidden stash behind the cloth, the man hypes up the start of today's training session. The instructor leads the youth into a secret room that hoards the family's true top-tier secrets. Masamune walks in and spots an absolute arsenal of firearms laid out on the tables. Multiple assault rifles, sidearms, and vintage military photos fill the racks of that secret armory. The dad cracks his knuckles, looking super confident, proving he's ready to throw down. He asks if his heir is ready up, and the youth just drops a serious nod to confirm. Right after, the two kick off an intense physical duel's combat stats. The next day, the school grind reboots as usual under the bright morning sun. Masamune walks through the empty school halls deep in thought before classes start. The MC figures Hirakawa won't be satisfied just by forcing his dad to bow, and that the villain is definitely cooking up something way worse. Knowing danger is lurking, the MC decides he needs to stay on high alert from here on out. Sakura pops out of nowhere and greets him super cheerfully, getting a chill response from the youth. He uses the chance to ask if she's noticed sketchy NPC behavior around the school lately. The girl gets confused by the question and replies she hasn't seen any glitches in the Matrix. The MC decides to drop it and tells her not to worry about it. Soon after, the students are properly glued to their desks paying attention to the lecture, but Sakura notices her heart rate spiking while she tries to focus on the teacher's lesson. The girl suddenly peeks back, blushing hard, literally unable to take her eyes off her classmate. She wonders to herself about the hidden lore behind Masamune's cryptic question. She starts theorizing that the youth might actually be trying to protect her from any incoming aggro. Masamune keeps his eyes glued to the board, completely checked out of his classmate's inner monologue. The MC calculates that by hanging with him, Sakura is also pulling major aggro and risking becoming a target for Hirakawa's toxic squad. He swears that if he's the only target, it's fine, but if they drag his dad or any innocent NPC into this, the villain is going to pay a massive fine. Time flies and the street clocks are already showing it's early evening in the busy city. Leaving the school, the girls say bye to Sakura as they all take their own routes back to their spawn points. Sakura walks alone down, totally distracted, reading texts on her phone. Suddenly, a loud crash of metal pipes falling grabs her attention, coming from a dark, unlit alley. Startled by the jump scare noise, the girl stops walking and stares into the creepy darkness. She spots a guy collapsed under the metal scrap right in the middle of the dark alley. The hoodie guy starts screaming, desperately begging for a revive to get out of that spot. Worried about the random guy's HP, Sakura rushes over without a second thought to play healer. But as she bends down to help, a silent shadow sneaks up behind her without her even noticing the trap. A toxic laugh echoes from the dark alley, revealing the whole thing was just a bait-and-switch set up by the gang. A super beefy goon grabs Sakura aggressively from behind, covering her mouth to mute her calls for backup. Absolutely terrified, the girl tries to spam the struggle button, but she's completely stun-locked by the criminal's brute strength. The fake victim in the hoodie gets up, laughing hysterically at how easily the noob fell for the bait. Hirakawa steps out, mocking the girl's innocence for getting clowned by such a basic low-tier trap. Far away, one of the goons is speedwalking down the brightly lit sidewalk by the water. Meanwhile, Masamune is chilling after a sweaty grind session, holding a towel and checking his phone. His screen pops up a threatening DM demanding the MC head straight to the pinged location. A totally new notification sound grabs his focus, proving the situation just escalated from 0 to 100. Opening the file, the MC sees a pic of Sakura tied up and being used as leverage by the griefers. The youth analyzes the image dead serious and realizes the enemy counterattacked way faster than predicted. A dark, furious expression takes over the exitman's face when he realizes they aggroed an innocent player. That same night, the bright neon Kurok signs light up hard outside the commercial building. Inside one of the VIP rooms, the goons are cracking up, bragging about how incredibly easy it was to troll the girl with the fake distress call. Tied up in the corner with duct tape over her mouth, Sakura is forced to listen to the criminals roast their own amateur acting. One of the guys chilling on the couch asks if they have admin privileges to start messing with the hostage yet. Laughing like a toxic troll, the bully guarantees the best part of this event is watching the hostage beg for mercy right in front of the guy she trusted. Flashing a pocket knife dangerously close to the hostage, Shinsuke Hirakawa finds it hilarious that the girl is completely cornered in the room. Sakura Shiraishi drops tears of pure panic through the tape, totally muted and unable to do anything but make muffled noises of terror. The blade shines under the bright lights of the cramped room, making the vibe even heavier and scarier for the captured girl. Watching the toxicity up close, the girls in the gang whisper nervously about how intense this is getting and wonder who exactly is on the way. One of the goons remembers the target trains at a martial arts gym but points out he's legally nerfed and can't use his moves on civilians. Right then, one of the girls calls out the dirty trap against someone who can't even fight back, but the boss screams furiously, telling her to shut her mouth. Suddenly, the VIP room door rattles violently as an unexpected player crashes the lobby from the outside. The whole squad immediately locks eyes on the door to see who's about to ruin the party. Rocking a toxic smirk, Shinsuke Hirakawa sarcastically jokes that the guest of honor finally showed up, though his ping was terrible. Masamune Corona makes an epic entrance at the door, staring down the squad with an absolutely chill and icicled vibe. Seeing the youth arrive, Sakura Shiraishi is stunned and tries to scream his name in panic through the tape. With a dead serious look, the new challenger demands to know what the point of this entire cringe setup is. Pointing at the tied-up girl, the criminal laughs and tells the MC to use his own eyes to read the room. Jumping off the couches, the goons surround the MC and warn him they're about to hand him an unforgettable beatdown. Showing absolutely zero fear, Masamune calmly asks if the attackers plan to drop the hostage if he agrees to tank all their hits without countering. The squad leader is totally flabbergasted by the MC's audacity and glares at him with pure rage in his eyes. Stepping up, Shinsuke Hirakawa asks the enemy has completely lost his mind to offer such a trash trade. Screaming in rage, he lunges forward, declaring he's going to wreck the girl anyway, while the enemy watches completely stunlocked. The MC just whispers that he finally understands the current patch notes of this fight after hearing the bully's threats. With a lightning-fast animation, the criminal tries to land a heavy haymaker straight to the MC's face. An old voice line from his instructor echoes in the MC's head, highlighting the unbreakable rule of never raising his hands against standard NPCs. But seeing his teammate taken hostage, the youth calculates that he used to only eliminate targets in war zones, but this current event just changed the meta. With his eyes shifting focus, the ex-mercenary decides this VIP room is no different than an actual battlefield. Busting out a devastating parry, the youth lands a brutal critical hit straight to the criminal's face before the guy even has a frame to react. Taking massive knockback from the impact, the bully is launched across the room, completely destroying the center table as he crashes. Smashing hard into the wooden debris, the guy screams in agony as he slides across the floor, leaking a ton of HP from his nose and mouth. The squad leader cries in pain, unable to even try getting back on his feet. The sidekicks are absolutely terrified, watching their commander get humiliatingly speedrun to the floor. The other two backup guys also watch the scene in shock, unable to compute how the MC got such busted physical stats. The two gang girls go into total shock, seeing the pathetic state of the bully wiped out on the floor. Completely traumatized by the brutal beatdown, the girls start sprinting for the room's exit, screaming in pure panic. One of the goons complains that the enemy wasn't supposed to engage because of martial arts rules, but his buddy yells that right now it's literally a battle royal for survival. Taking slow, decisive steps, the MC advances like a boss while an oppressive dark aura completely covers his character model. The youth figures the enemies thought he'd refuse to fight because of the hostage, but he decides not to give them a single frame to react. Because of that, the MC coldly calculates that if they don't have time to process it, the hostage debuff doesn't even exist. Raising an arm in a challenge emote, the young scout invites the opponents to duel without showing a single drop of hesitation. Screaming in rage, the beefiest goon rushes the MC with a clenched fist, trying to land a heavy strike. But the youth dodges it ridiculously easily and lands a precision strike on the enemy's throat, dropping him instantly to the floor. The rest of the goons scream in panic, watching their tank get one-shotted right in front of them. Without giving the squad a millisecond to regroup, the ex-mercenary dashes in and claps the second enemy with a crushing combo. Right then, one of the opponents tries to grief him with a dirty backstab, holding a glass bottle as a makeshift weapon. Spotting the flank, Masamune quick blocks the attacks the criminal's face with absolutely zero mercy. Grabbing the enemy tightly by the shirt, the youth totally restricts the guy from trying any dodge rolls or counterattacks. Using a high-speed animation, the MC brutally throws the attacker straight into the floor, permanently ending the threat. The last remaining goon goes into full panic mode, seeing all his buddies logged out on the floor. Sweating bullets from fear, the sidekick looks around, desperately trying to find any exit strategy from this nightmare lobby. Suddenly, the goon's eyes lock onto the pocket knife Hirakawa dropped on the couch during the chaos. Speed grabbing the knife, the kid dashes towards Sakura and threatens to use her as a human shield to secure his extraction from the room. Seeing the blade pointed her way, the girl's eyes go wide with terror behind the duct tape. But the MC reacts with god-tier reflexes and lands a pinpoint kick that instantly cancels the opponent's attack animation. Taking the raw impact of the strike, the criminal is launched into the side wall, totally unable to input any defensive commands. The bad guy drops completely unconscious right next to the hostage, leaving the sharp weapon harmlessly on the floor. Taking intense calm steps, the young scout starts walking toward the squad commander, who's still laid out, making pathetic pain noises, and totally off balance. The bully crawls backward in a desperate attempt to kite the danger. The ex-merc stops right in front of him and stares down at the enemy with an icicled look that radiates a terrifying boss aura. Panicking, the injured guy tries to intimidate the youth by bragging that his dad is a high-tier politician who will completely wipe the MC's family server. Ignoring the screaming, the youth casually pulls out his own smartphone and calmly points out that he already has full intel on the enemy's illegal side quests. Hirakawa goes into shock and starts sweating ice water when he sees what the MC has pulled up on his screen. The MC reveals he's got screenshots of the underage bully drinking and smoking plus bonus secret files that would permanently cancel his public image. Keeping his chill, the MC pockets his device and declares that honestly none of that lore even matters to him. The bully stays glued to the floor of the VIP room, watching his enemy with massive paranoia about taking more damage. Carefully stepping closer, the youth starts peeling the duct tape off his classmate's mouth. Sakura Shiraishi looks at him with tears of relief and whispers the youth's name, feeling super grateful for the carry. Suddenly, the girl lets out a surprised squeak when the youth scoops her up in his arms out of nowhere without any warning. Carrying the girl like an absolute unit, the young scout mentions that using social pressure isn't exactly his preferred meta for fixing bugs. Right then, the MC walks toward the room's exit door while shooting one last death glare at the defeated enemy on the floor. Rocking an icicled expression, the youth drops a lethal warning. If the gang ever trolls them again, their accounts will be permanently deleted. Absolutely terrified by the death threat, the bully stammers in pure panic, agreeing to every single term of service the youth laid out. Outside under the streetlights, the girl deeply thanks her partner for literally saving her playthrough today. Showing total indifference, the MC replies she doesn't need to thank him since handling that mess was just the most optimal strat for him. Flashing a soft friendly smile, the girl accepts the youth's excuse, totally getting his vibe as they walk back together. From the rooftop, the city skyline glows against the starry sky as the heavy combat tension finally logs out for the night. Struggling up the outdoor stairs, Hirakawa complains about his low HP while gripping his busted arm and raging about the epic fail. Opening the door, the antagonist is jump-scared to find an uninvited guest waiting for him in the dark of his own base. Shinsuke Hirakawa walks into an unlit room packed with thugs where he's greeted with weird looks by everyone inside. Chilling in the middle of the room, a red-haired kid asks in a super calm voice how the raid went. Visibly sweating and nervous, Hirakawa drops his head and sadly adds massive. Hearing the results, the rest of the gang in the room starts whispering to each other about the epic throw. Right then, the red-haired commander leans on the furniture looking completely bored and frustrated with his teammates' garbage performance. The kid jumps up out of nowhere and furiously asks how he actually failed a simple escort mission to bring Sakura Shiraishi here. Then the thug grabs his rival by the collar and roasts him, reminding him he's nothing but a low-tier student NPC. Terrified of his commander's rage, Hirakawa tries to defend himself by screaming that the lobby was completely overrun. Screaming in panic, the kid snitches that the actual hacker who ruined the op was Masamune Corona, but the red-haired commander doesn't forgive skill issues and delivers a brutal gut punch straight to Hirakawa. Wiped out on the floor and taking massive damage, the injured boy only lets out a pathetic groan of pain. The redhead stares at his victim with pure disgust, thinking that players who rely on their parents' admin tools are absolute trash. Known in the streets as Retsu Kuzum, the commander demands to know the kid's name so he can completely destroy him with raw PvP skills. Far away, the wooden gates of the Kuroishi dojo stand peacefully in the soft daylight. Inside the martial arts school, Masamune Corona and his dad lock intense eye contact before starting their grind session. Gripping his wooden training weapon tightly, Masamune's dad seriously announces the start of the duel. Maintaining max focus, the young scout nods and gets into his combat stance. At that moment, the dad raises his practice gear above his head and launches a high-speed rush attack. Keeping his eyes glued to the enemy's animations, Masamune waits for the perfect frame to pop his counter. From there, both start throwing lightning-fast strikes in an insane combo chain. During the rapid-fire exchange, the duo parries hits they're blighting against each other with crazy momentum. Finding an opening, the youth executes a flawless dodge roll close to the training mat. The dad praises his kid, noting his hitboxes have gotten way tighter lately. Without making a sound, Masamune just listens to his coach's feedback while staying locked in combat mode. But the dad suddenly stands tall and strictly points out that his kid is hesitating in the 1v1. Tilting his head, the youth realizes his dad can literally read his inputs just by watching his movements. A flashback from his previous playthrough pops up, reminding him of the time he ignored his family's tutorials. In that moment, he remembers Sakura would catch the worst bad ending if he refused to fight at 100%. Staring at his own palm, the youth thinks about all the hardcore tutorials he absorbed. The MC asks himself what the actual point of grinding this hard is if he's never allowed to unleash his ultimate. Staring at his air dead serious, the man gets ready to drop some heavy lore about that weapon. Right then, he starts dismantling the wooden casing and warns the kid to never second-guess himself in a boss fight. The shiny metal blade is fully revealed, proving the training weapon was actually a disguised legendary drop. Gripping the authentic curved blade, the dad coldly warns that hesitation is the ultimate speedrun strat to getting wiped. Taking a firm step forward, the fighter aggressively rushes in to launch a brand new combo. Capitalizing on it, the combatant throws a high-speed downward slash right at his young opponent. Using a frame-perfect move, the instructor attacks to test his heir's reaction time against a lethal threat. Backdashing quickly, the youth uses his footwork to maintain the exact pixel-perfect spacing. The sharp weapon stops mere millimeters from Masamune's neck, and the kid doesn't show a single drop of fear. Pointing the weapon, the dad explains that this technique is a literal elimination job passed down the skill tree. The instructor adds that this method works to keep the kid from getting clapped in war zones, treating him like a living weapon. Wrapping up the tutorial, the dad declares the youth will eventually understand the hidden lore behind all this. Without a word, the young scout absorbs the lesson and bows his head, thinking about his endgame. A memory from his past war playthrough respawns, showing the insane chaos the kid had to tank as a soldier. Right then, the boy asks himself if he really should have strictly followed his dad's hardcore patch notes. Remembering the heavy aggro of the combat zones, the youth seriously doubts if those strats actually work in real-world PvP. Snapping back to the present, the youth just nods affirmatively and agrees to log off from the training session. In the following days, the boring school grind restarts, split between farming XP in class and doing physical tasks. Walking through the school halls, the MC looks around, feeling totally hit with nostalgia. Suddenly, his classmate Sakura Shiraishi yells for him super loud, grabbing his attention in the hallway. Using a soft voice, the girl asks if the youth has any free time today. Getting straight to the point, the youth replies honestly that his schedule is packed and he doesn't have a window to chat. Anxious, the girl doubles down, saying she just wanted to properly thank him for the clutch save yesterday. Looking totally convinced, the girl swears his carry had a massive impact on her playthrough. The other students walking by stop to watch the drama unfold, super curious about the tea. In that moment, awkward silence takes over as the girl waits for a new dialogue option. Giving in to her spam, the youth accepts the invite and agrees to tag along. Because of that, the girl happily cheers and suggests they ditch the school to chat in a different lobby. A bit later, the duo pulls up to a super cozy coffee shop right in the middle of the city. Chilling at an isolated table, the girl scans the menu options, totally unsure of what to order. Looking at him with curiosity, the girl asks if the youth is a regular coffee drinker. Right then, she asks if he hangs out at cafes a lot, and he replies this is literally his first time spawning in one. Amazed by his answer, she points out the boy seems way too chill and experienced for his level. The youth drops a quick nod while staring at his black coffee being dropped off at the table. Suddenly, a bitter memory flashes in his mind, bringing back the hardcore survival days from the military. Flashing back to his hitman days, he remembers the absolute necessity of keeping his cool in every single biome. Because of that, he calculates that entering an unmapped zone requires max-level emotional control. Looking at the youth, the girl's face turns red as she thinks about how mature and heightier his vibe is. Suddenly, she gets a little jump scare, fumbling her words as she tries to start the main quest dialogue. Looking a bit shy, the girl thanks him again for the assist and asks how she could possibly repay the carry. The young scout calculates that just a simple verbal Fiji is already way more reward than necessary. Putting his cup down, he bluntly asks why she's trying so hard to max out their friendship level. Shook by the youth's icicled attitude, the girl just gasps, completely caught off guard by the question. Flashing a sad face, the girl asks if she just became an annoying side quest, but he politely shoots that down. Staring at her warm drink, she looks down deep in thought about the feelings she's farming for the youth. Dropping a smile, Sakura Shiraishi points out that she has her boundaries and is literally just doing whatever she feels like. Deep in thought, Masamune Corona mentally repeats the idea of only doing exactly what you want to do. Then he asks himself if a playthrough could really be that simple and easy. Outside, Shinsu Kirikawa peeks through the glass and pings Masamune Corona's location for his commander. Meanwhile, the youth takes a sip of his black coffee, totally blind to the world events happening outside. Retsu Kazum scoffs, saying the youth looks like a total noob, but his sidekick warns that he trains martial arts and is the heir to a dojo boss. Because of that, the red-haired commander sarcastically guesses the kid has probably never survived a real street PvP match, and adds that it doesn't even look like those two are actually in a locked-in relationship. Kuzum swears he could care less, sending Shinsuke into full panic mode, begging him to drop a banhammer on the enemy. The red-haired guy immediately spins around with a wicked look that absolutely terrifies his partner. Suddenly, he violently smashes Shinsuke's face right against the wall of the alleyway. Kuzum furiously asks if the kid actually thought he had the admin rights to issue commands like that. The leader justifies that he never said he would destroy the enemy, but that he'll clear the stages his own way. The pressure on his face gets even more agonizing, ripping a terrified groan out of Shinsuke. But a second later, he lets the kid go, laughing out loud and claiming it was just a little troll. Kuzum laughs hard and warns he's going to handle the whole server, just asking his sidekick to flex his family clout like usual. The next morning, Masamune hits the school and walks into class totally zoned out. He notices all the other students are whispering rumors in the corners of the room. Right then, the youth stops, completely stunned to see some random player already sitting at his desk. Kuzum is chilling super comfortably in his spot and sarcastically greets. Masamune seriously warns him that's his assigned seat, only getting a toxic sarcastic nod back. Then the redhead stands up, getting way too close to the youth, and declares that from today on he's the server admin, and lets out a loud laugh, swearing he's super hyped to see how the enemy handles the new patch. The young scout just stares at him, not computing a single thing this toxic troll is trying to say. The boomer teacher explains that due to family issues, the older student is currently transferring into this class. Kuzum introduces himself to the whole lobby with an insanely casual but threatening vibe. After that, the teacher tells the new kid to claim one of the empty desks in the room. The noob nods and walks over to his seat, crossing paths right next to Sakura. The girl watches him walk by, feeling a massive wave of anxiety about this guy staying in the lobby. In that moment, the reed-haired dude looks back, flashing a cruel smirk locked right onto the girl. A few days speed by after the transfer, and the vibe in the class takes a massive nosedive thanks to some dark rumors. In the hall, one student points out that anyone who doesn't follow the new guy's rules has a huge risk of getting their account deleted, but his buddy doubts the rumor. Exactly at the same second, a classmate gets hit with a brutal combo. The victim drops to the floor while the attacker coldly ignores him and keeps walking down the hallway like nothing happened. Showing absolutely zero mercy, the red-haired commander even steps on the downed kid's head. He then glares at another terrified student and demands to know if daily greetings got nerfed around here. Happy with the kid's terrified stutter, the bully just smiles and says the classmate passed the vibe check. The boy desperately spams thank yous while getting condescending, threatening headpats from the attacker. Because of that, a list of absolute garbage dictator-level rules starts controlling and trapping the class under a cloud of pure panic. Two friends try to whisper secretly in the hall, thinking they've got stealth mode on against the school's tyrant. Suddenly, one of them jumpscares his buddy when he notices the threat just spawned right next to them. Kuzum rolls up casually with his backpack on and sarcastically hits the boys with a greeting. The duo instantly folds in half, doing a respect emote, and the bully mocks their positive energy. Another random student walking by also rushes to greet the commander out of pure fear. The bully turns to one of the stuttering kids and talks trash about the guy who just walked past. Walking down the hall, Sakura also stutters when she spots Kuzum and tries to greet him while absolutely terrified. The redhead gets way too close to her face and asks if the girl is free to party after the grind, making her super nervous. Hearing the girl say her schedule is full, the bully just takes the rejection with a sketchy laugh. She walks away feeling relieved, but wonders internally why he keeps spamming her with invites to hang out. The tyrant continues his route, moonwalking backwards, keeping up his daily routine of spreading terror through the server. During the lecture, the teacher announces his handing out quests and asks the students to pass the papers to the back. Masamune grabs the document and gets ready to hand the page to his classmate sitting right behind him. But when he extends his arm to pass the paper, the other student aggressively dodges, running away from any contact. The MC feels super confused by the dodge and wonders to himself if his classmate actually just purposefully evaded him. Staring at the sweating classmate who's refusing eye contact, he realizes the panic debuff has affected the entire lobby. The siren blasts, signaling the end of the grind, and the room starts emptying out at light speed. While tidying his spawn point by putting his chair on the desk, the youth notices something super off in his radius. He sees that only a few specific desks, including his own, didn't get moved for the server wipe cleaning. Right then, a classmate gets totally ganked by a duo of bullies who roll up holding broomsticks. The griefers drop toxic smiles and mock the cornered kid who has literally zero escape routes. Masamune watches silently as one of the bullies lands a heavy kick right onto a random student's desk. Right after, the bully starts spamming hits with the wooden stick, forcing the poor kid to scream in panic. This entire dirty gank happens right in the middle of the empty classroom while the ex-mercenary watches with laser focus. The attacker sarcastically acts like the desk fell over by itself while continuing to troll the victim on the floor. Soon after, the villain mercilessly steps on the downed kid's back, pulling a painful groan of agony out of him, and sarcastically asks Masamune if he accidentally just stepped on some random trash on the ground. The MC just stares at him with a dark look, realizing the true objective of this toxic little play. The youth remembers that other NPCs also suffer from this gang's daily griefing without getting a single heal from anyone. The bullies isolate and completely shatter the mental HP of anyone who refuses to follow the red-haired commander's patch notes. Faced with such massive cowardice, the young scout's silent rage starts boiling over hardcore. Then the MC walks closer to Shinsuke, who is chilling super relaxed, sitting right on the teacher's desk. The youth calculates internally that he finally downloaded the enemy's entire game plan. Shinsuke laughs his head off in a toxic way, bragging that the hero took way too long to realize it and that this time he won't even need to get his own hands dirty. He brags that Kuzum created a literal hell server in the school where the marked targets are treated like they're permanently shadow banned, and wraps up by furiously screaming at Masamune to get ready to tank the consequences in this literal high school nightmare. Facing the incoming threat, the kid Masamune Corona stands absolutely unflinching in the middle of the classroom. Right then, one of the students tries to speedrun away in absolute terror to escape the chaos. While running away, the kid cries out that the class vibe just got way too toxic. Watching from afar, the bully with the broomstick laughs out loud, bragging that the kid has always followed his family's rules like a good little NPC. The MC remembers he caught a game over in the future strictly because he hesitated during the team fight. Suddenly, a sweet memory of Sakura smiling flashes in his mind, reminding him that she just does whatever she feels like doing. Because of that, the youth decides that from this exact frame forward, he's also going to play however he wants. The bully rushes in, swinging a brutal heavy attack with the wooden stick right at the MC. But the bully is shook when he realizes his attack completely whiffed in the most embarrassing way possible. Masamune glares at him with an icicled hyper-focused look, ready to launch his counter combo. Done with second-guessing, the youth grabs the piece of wood with insane grip strength to disarm the enemy. The bully grinds his teeth in pure rage when he realizes he just got totally parried by his opponent. Flat on the floor, the attacker screams in pain while his teammate drops toxic curses aimed straight at the MC. Raging over his buddy getting clapped, another bully raises his wooden stick to try and backstab the youth. but the young scout expertly dodges and lands a precision strike that instantly drops the new challenger. Taking the raw impact, the enemy spits red liquid and collapses, completely wiped out on the floor. Seeing his squad get logged out, the group commander backpedals, terrified by how easily they got wiped. Clenching his teeth in pure fury, Shinsuke Hirakawa stares at the MC, literally unable to cope with what he just watched. Tossing the wooden stick aside, Masamune casually mentions he just really likes keeping his classroom clean. The hero drops a toxic flex, adding that it looked like there was a massive pile of trash dumped in the middle of the room. Keeping his posture straight, the youth glares at the remaining enemies, who are getting ready to bail from the zone. Flashing an icy stare, the young scout repeats that the trash definitely needed to get swept out of the lobby. The bully goes totally mute from fear and literally shakes in front of the youth's terrifying boss Aura. Without thinking twice, Shinsuke hits the sprint button and runs down the hallway in pure panic to save his own skin. Running right behind him, the sidekick goes into panic mode, terrified of being the next victim to get deleted by the youth. Masamune silently watches the chaotic retreat of the griefers down the empty school hallways. Gripping the wooden stick, the youth wonders if he should have chased them down to fully complete the quest. The rescued classmate walks up shaking and nervously asks what the heck he just pulled off in the zone. The kid drops tears of pure terror, warning that fighting back against that squad is only going to trigger way worse boss phases. The youth doubles down that there's no predicting what the tyrants will do to them after taking such a humiliating L in the room. Faced with his classmates' panic, Masamune just calmly asks if the meta is actually that broken. Realizing the brawl is over, the other students also start speedwalking away from the zone as fast as possible. The youth advises his classmate to just keep grinding the fight until the bullies finally take the L. Terrified, the kid cries, pointing out that the gang leader commands a literal army of bullies in the school server. Different girls whisper in fear, saying nobody in the class is going to have the guts to join their party. The classmate is stressing hard, claiming that trying to solo that entire squad is a literally impossible quest. Quietly, the young scout just listens to the whining without showing a single drop of worry on his face. Then he calculates that his classmate has two options: either take the L without fighting or bet it all and counterattack right now. Straightening up the desk, the youth declares he's going to do whatever he wants, leaving his classmate totally shook by his resolve. Flashing his icy stare, Masamune warns that player count doesn't matter and that he's going to permanently delete every single enemy in that squad. The next day, the school grind starts up under that exact same heavy, desolate vibe in the hallways. Walking up the stairs, Sakura Shiraishi looks super deep in thought and stressed about where this whole PvP war is heading. Suddenly, the red-haired commander comes walking down the hall with his usual arrogant boss-tier attitude. Spotting the tyrant, the girl gets nervous while the rest of the NPCs fold over to greet the bully. Trolling hard, the redhead orders one of the students to speedrun to the cafeteria and buy him some sodas. The tyrant drops the demand for 10 cans of soda and orders the kid to carry them back as fast as humanly possible. Absolutely terrified, the student stutters when he realizes he's going to have to blow a ton of in-game currency on this quest. Kuzume glares at him with disgust, asking if there's a glitch forcing the kid to take a step back and accept the mission. Hiding behind the wall, Sakura watches the cringe scene in silence as the attacker sarcastically says thanks. The student runs away, terrified to complete the quest, while the red-haired commander just throws up a hand sign without looking back. Isolated in the hall, the bully keeps up his threatening vibe, policing the school's traffic. Realizing the threat is getting closer, Sakura panics when she sees the route he's taking. Without a second thought, the girl dashes to hide before she accidentally pulls the dangerous boss aggro. Kuzume walks slowly toward the stairs, completely clueless that he was being scoped out by the girl. With a sharp, cruel look, the redhead keeps walking his route, spreading the panic debuff everywhere he steps. Hiding at the bottom of the staircase, the girl holds her breath until the villain's character model finally unspawns from the area. Relieved that he's out of her field of view, she decides to take a massive detour to avoid any random encounters. Near the vending machines, the classmate is crying his eyes out, clueless on how to afford that many drinks. The kid panics when he checks his empty wallet, realizing he's got zero funds for the quest. Suddenly, Masamune rolls up and holds out his smartphone to help the terrified kid out. The vending machine screen flashes an insane number right after the youth uses his tech tool. The student is absolutely mind-blown, staring at that glitched amount blinking on the digital display. Out of nowhere, all 10 requested cans drop at once down the delivery chute. Amazed by the speedrun strat, the kid bends down to grab the loot and spams thank yous for the assist. Holding the heavy loot, he watches the hero calmly start walking away down the corridor. Masamune casually replies it was no big deal and that he just triggered a minor glitch in the machine's code. Watching from afar, Sakura trails the youth, rocking an expression full of suspicion and doubt. Looking at his back, the girl gets a crazy feeling that she's already partied up with this mysterious guy in some past playthrough. Somewhere else in the school, the red-haired commander is patiently camping by the door of the multipurpose room. Throwing the door open, Shinsuke Hirakawa walks in, raging about how long his partner took to join the secret lobby. Getting straight to the point, the bully desperately demands the redhead permanently delete the MC from the server. Kuzume just yawns, looking bored out of his mind, and declares he doesn't care about cowardly players who don't know how to PvP. Shinsuke panics and reminds him that his minions got wiped out and he's definitely the enemy's next target. Flashing a cruel smile, the redhead trolls him, reminding him he already dropped a warning about the risk from day one. He walks away coldly, pointing out he doesn't give a single rip about his partner's RNG and that he needs to find his own survival strat. Trying to find a way to save his own skin, Shinsuke desperately reveals that Sakura Shiraishi is the critical weak point they can use against the rival. Because of that, the red-haired commander instantly stops dead in his tracks when he hears the girl's name. Curious about the leaked intel, Kazum slowly turns around, showing a genuinely surprised face. Taking advantage of the aggro, Shinsuke points at him and asks if the girl hasn't been actively dodging him lately. In that exact frame, the bully gets violently grabbed by his clothes before he can even finish his trash talk. Kuzum glares at him with max-level rage and warns him not to even think about trolling when it comes to this topic. Even while getting choked out, Shinsuke flashes a toxic smirk and asks if he actually caught feelings for the girl. Having zero patience for the mind games, the redhead just orders his partner to drop the lore dump once and for all. Then the bully fixes his posture after being dropped and starts breaking down his tier list opinions on girls. In a sarcastic tone, Shinsuke claims that in the current meta, no girl thinks a guy who fixes everything with violence is attractive. Kuzum listens in dead silence, showing he's actually pretty interested in his partner's guide. The youth keeps explaining, totally confident that Sakura has caught totally different feelings for Masamune, and points out that every time the redhead tries to flex his power, the girl is just going to speedrun straight to the rival for a carry. Furious at the detailed breakdown, Kuzum orders him to skip the tutorial and drop the attack strat right now. Shinsuke stands in front of the room's chalkboard and announces there are 2 exact quests they need to clear. Holding the chalk, Shinsuke writes Masamune's name on the board and says step 1 is getting him banned from the school server. Right after, he permanently erases his rival's name to demonstrate the absolute W of his toxic master plan. Flashing an evil grin, the bully details that the next phase is dropping the nice guy act around Sakura. He wickedly suggests that if the girl is never going to naturally party up with him, the only strat left is forsetting her. Kuzum listens to his partner's patch notes with laser focus and whispers that he finally gets the logic. Walking toward the exit, the red-haired commander leaves his partner totally confused by moving out without saying a single word. Suddenly, a brutal punch smashes into the room's door, showcasing the bully's busted damage stats. Finding his partner's shock hilarious, the redhead turns around, laughing his head off like an absolute psycho. He screams that he's locking in the strat and plans to completely wipe the rival both in PvP and on the social leaderboards. Shinsuke watches his partner's unhinged reaction with an evil smile, hyping up the revenge arc that's about to drop. The next day, the school siren blasts through the halls, announcing the end of the daily XP grind. While Masamune is packing his inventory, the redhead camps him from afar, keeping him in his line of sight. Kuzum rocks a cruel smile, already plotting the opening moves of his revenge against his rival. Masamune notices his aggro is pulled and shoots a suspicious glare back at the new kid in class. Immediately after, Kuzum throws his bag over his shoulder and heads for the exit with Shinsuke. Sorting his gear, Masamune quietly calculates that surprisingly the redhead didn't try any funny business today. When night drops, the youth reaches his spawn point and announces super loud that he's finally back at base. Noticing the total lack of audio in the house, he guesses his dad is still grinding away at the family dojo. Suddenly, the device in his pocket starts vibrating nonstop, stealing all his focus. In a flashback, the red-haired commander repeats his vow to completely wipe his rival using every available exploit. Back then, Kuzum demanded his partner quickly transfer the agreed-upon funds to kick off the master plan. The redhead explains he intends to hire the server's most dangerous hacker to help them carry out the revenge. Shinsuke recognizes the username on the screen and warns that this hacker doesn't usually accept quests just for in-game currency. But the red-haired commander claims he doesn't care and orders the quest to start using his name anyway. Snapping back to the present, Masamune answers his dad's call looking extremely stressed out. The boy's dad warns on the call that today's training session has to be cancelled ASAP, and adds that his mom also won't be able to respond back home for a very long time. Anxious about the heavy vibe of the call, the youth asks if some major server crash just happened. At the factory, a worker panics, reporting that all the machines froze up because of a cyber attack. The dad quickly apologizes and drops the call to try and contain the massive glitch happening at work. Isolated in his room, the youth stares at his phone, trying to figure out why a targeted hack just hit his family's business. Suddenly, the TV behind him starts blasting static, putting out a super annoying glitchy noise. The monitor flashes a hacker logo showing the silhouette of a guy with glowing glasses who asks for his username. Spooked by the hardware randomly booting up, the youth spins around at light speed to look at the screen. The hacker relays the redhead's message, demanding the youth permanently log out of the city and never return to the school. Masamune stares at the broadcast looking dead serious, realizing he's the actual main target of this whole mess. Because of that, the youth asks if the hacker is also the admin who crashed his parents' factory. The kid asks what the penalty is if he hits decline, and the hacker warns he'll permanently delete his dad's business. He adds that he's going to leak all the company's private files if the commands aren't followed. The youth bitterly realizes the enemy crossed a massive line by dragging his family into this PvP match. In that moment, a visual of the red-haired commander laughing triumphantly pops into the MC's head. Masamune bitterly calculates that he literally didn't get any dialogue options to choose from in this scenario. The hacker trolls him, claiming the ban hammer won't drop until tomorrow, pointing out he still has a window to make a move today, and uses the chance to drop a super cryptic hint that Sakura still has to respawn back at her house yet. Walking under the streetlights, young Sakura regrets in her head that she did party up with the youth for the walk home. Curious, the youth asks why he's getting a tip from a guy who's playing for the enemy team. The hacker shoots back that he doesn't care which faction gets the W and that giving tips wasn't part of his contract. He adds that it'll be highly entertaining to watch the final to see if the youth chooses to speedrun away or fight. Masamune looks down deep in thought and declares he fully downloaded the entire situation. Looking up totally locked in, the youth warns he needs to patch up some bad intel the hacker just dropped. Because of that, the youth grabs his doorknob and swears that the ending of this match isn't locked in yet. The youth unlocks the door to his base, fully prepped for the boss fight that's about to kick off in the dark. Stepping outside, he gets jump-scared by a squad of goons who were already camping him in the front yard. The bully sarcastically asks where the youth is trying to speedrun to in the middle of the night. Masamune silently realizes minions somehow managed to dox his exact spawn point. He remembers his dad's tutorials about how his combat skills are literal tools designed for taking lives. Clenching his fist with max power, the youth remembers exactly why he always respected his oath. The bully screams in rage, ordering the kid to throw hands instead of just F-king in the zone. Masamune calculates that his self-imposed ban on hitting people has officially reached its expiration date. Seeing the enemy's attack animation wind up, the youth realizes just holding the block button won't be enough anymore. Clenching his fist hardcore, the youth readies up to drop a massive counter on the enemy's attack. Using an absurdly fast strike, Masamune tags the attacker's face without giving him a single frame to block. Right then, he clearly realizes that hesitating now would permablock his chance to rescue anyone. The raw impact knocks the criminal flying backward, leaving his partner absolutely shook. Exploiting the opening, the youth lands a frame-perfect kick that launches the next opponent way out of range. He calculates that a real warzone isn't just limited to maps where bullets are flying around. Suddenly, the last partner tries to gank him from behind, swinging a baseball bat covered in metal spikes. But the youth claps back, declaring that any zone with a valid reason to fight instantly becomes his personal battlefield. Because of that, the counterattack perfectly tags the bandit, ripping out a sound of pure agony. Wasting zero time, Masamune loots the spiked bat from the downed enemy to secure total map control. He dashes at max speed, pinning the last remaining attacker hard against the wall. Trapped and dying of fear, the criminal shakes when he sees the spiked weapon way too close to his face. Right then, the hacker drops defeated to the floor while the wooden weapon slides safely out of bounds. Grabbing his smartphone, the youth warns that breaking into someone's base means jail time and dials up the server mods, the Police. Then Masamune initiates the call to report the griefing and secure the protection of his spawn point. He figures that hesitation literally costs lives and decides he's going to fight based exclusively on his own rules. Taking confident steps, the youth leaves the downed criminals behind in the pitch black. The youth marches toward the school map, fully aware that the red-haired commander is waiting for the final boss duel. On the rooftop, the villain Kuzume flashes a confident smirk as he watches his rival approaching. Right then, he grabs Sakura as a hostage while using the moment to troll the whole situation. The girl drops silent tears with her mouth covered, desperately spamming the help button in her head. Masamune reaches the zone, rocking a dead serious face, radiating a massive heavy aura of pure rage. Looking up, the youth hears the enemy commander sarcastically cheering for his arrival. Kuzume sarcastically asks if the two of them actually had a max-level friendship. Then the redhead laughs super loud and drops a toxic taunt, claiming he's currently in a romance arc with the girl. The MC just repeats the phrase, flashing total suspicion and absolute disgust in his eyes. Sakura tries to scream desperately behind the tyrant's hand to debunk all that fake lore. Feeling his rage meter maxing out, Masamune clenches his fist, fully prepped to annihilate his opponent. He starts walking toward the school building without showing a single frame of hesitation. Kuzume taunts him to climb up for the 1v1 and warns he'll be waiting for him in the classroom lobby. The red-haired commander shows off his evil vibe and adds a heavy dose of trolling to his taunt. He warns that the youth will have to survive a literal horde of goons currently camping the courtyard. Masamune stares at the massive mob count without showing the slightest hint of panic. A massive swarm of armed minions completely surrounds the hero in the school courtyard. Kuzume exits the cutscene dragging the hostage and remembers he has a major side quest to finish. At that moment, he initiates a call, instantly ordering the permanent deletion of the rival's dad's company. The ally on the other end of the comms just confirms he received the wipeout command. Laughing like a total psycho, the redhead sarcastically hopes the factory is still standing by the time this is over. Realizing the timer is running out, the young scout sprints at max speed straight into the human barricade. Suddenly, a massive tank-build enemy spawns in his path, completely blocking the kid's push. Masamune locks onto the new obstacle, knowing he needs to speedrun this fight as fast as humanly possible. Far from the courtyard, the empty classroom waits in dead silence for the grand finale of this clash. The hacker's device is left FK on the desk after finishing the virus upload. Down in the courtyard, the MC kicks off a savage brawl against the swarm of minions surrounding him. Masamune knows the only viable strat to save everyone is to permanently delete every single opponent on the map. Chilling comfortably in the classroom, the red-haired commander celebrates how incredibly OP he feels right now. He spins around to face the hostage, suggesting they go on a romantic date by raiding her family's dojo. The antagonist wickedly daydreams about griefing the older NPCs at the gym just to flex on the girl. Sakura completely ignores his trash talk, staying muted and keeping her sad eyes glued to the floor. Kuzume glares at her seriously when he notices the girl completely ignoring his garbage-eater jokes. He wonders if it's too early for a romance arc, but figures breaking into the school is already a solid tutorial. Suddenly, the beefy sidekick bursts into the room, spamming the commander in a total rush. The partner reports that the enemy actually managed to breach the main gate, cutting the dialogue short. Sakura feels a spark of hope and whispers the youth's name when she realizes he's actually coming. The redhead finds the alert hilarious and admits the rival actually performed way better than he expected. Down on the bottom floor, Masamune drops a devastating combo that instantly unplugs another gang member. Moving crazy fast, the young scout pushes into the main hall, leaving the defeated mobs in his dust. The minion tries to calm the commander down, reminding him the ground floor guards were just low-level fodder. Sprinting through the halls, the MC dashes toward the interior stairs without wasting a single frame. The red-haired antagonist drops a smile, claiming the true DPS check is waiting for the youth on floor number 2. The youth speed climbs the levels, hyper-focused on reaching the room where the hostage is locked up. Halfway up the stairs, the gang's veteran squad is camping him, completely body-blocking the path up. Masamune analyzes the toxic welcome party and just whispers that he fully understands the difficulty spike. Showing zero fear, he yells, taunting the entire hidden squad to just jump him all at once. Triggered by the kid's disrespect, the criminals scream toxic insults, demanding he gets permanently wiped. At that moment, the whole gang rushes down the stairs together, swinging their makeshift weapons. Flashing a razor-sharp glare, the ex-mercenary gets into position to delete the threats one by one. Using lethal animations, the youth unleashes frame-perfect strikes that knock out every single enemy on the stairs. The redhead remembers his partner insisted hardcore that he should pop his ultimate against the rival. He calculates that watching the youth get humiliated by standard NPCs would be the most bitter ending possible. Sakura looks away, lost in thought, carrying massive anxiety about her partner's RNG. Kuzume flashes an icicled smile, believing the L will permanently destroy her feelings for the rival. Heavy footsteps echo up the stairs, proving the invader just cleared another skill check. The second-floor hallway drops into absolute dead silence right after the combat audio cuts out. Suddenly, the red-haired commander is absolutely mind-blown when he realizes the veteran block failed completely. Freaking out, one of the minions voice calls the boss and stutters while reporting the raid happening in the school. Right then, he screams that the ground floor is already completely under the invader's control, while the gang's bodies are literally painting the hallway. On the other end of the line, Kuzume just lets out a scoff of pure disrespect when he hears his ally's terrifying report. Suddenly, the minion on the call gets hit with a brutal combo and ends up collapsing unconscious on the floor. Retsu Kuzume sarcastically replies when he realizes the enemy has already swept floor number 2 completely clean. Because of that, he throws up a silent hand sign using his fingers to cue up the next attack on the invader. Readying their weapons, the rest of the minions stack up by the classroom door holding heavy wooden bats. The gang sweats, nervously waiting to gank the kid the exact millisecond the door opens. Keeping his eyes peeled, the red-haired commander watches the movement, waiting to initiate the final ambush. Watching everything in pure panic, Sakura gets anxious hearing the antagonist's cruel order to delete the youth from the server. One of the minions raises his wooden bat as high as it goes, sweating hard to land the opening strike. The exact frame the door opens, the attackers rush in together, screaming for the youth to meet his maker right there. Kuzume celebrates the sneak attack while the hostage girl screams in terror, seeing how violent the push is. Laughing toxically, the minions celebrate the play, thinking they easily wiped the enemy off the map. But the match flips when one of the attackers takes a headshot, dropping to the floor covered in red. Using an insanely fast strike, the hero tags the jaw of another attacker who tried to counter. Chaining the combo, Masamune lands a mid-air kick that launches the next opponent way across the classroom. The youth dashes in, hyper-focused on clearing the remaining aggro without showing a single drop of stamina drain. Kuzume goes berserk, seeing his teammates drop, and screams the enemy's name with absolute pure hatred. Knocking out the final criminals, the youth clears the path and steps into the zone where the hostage is trapped. Keeping it direct, he commands the redhead to release Sakura Shiraishi right now so they can end the event. Seeing her rescuer's determination, the young girl feels a massive wave of relief wash over her. The red-haired commander accepts the 1v1 by spreading his arms, swearing he's going out of his way to solo the rival. Pulling out a sharp knife, the attacker warns he fully intends to use this bladed weapon to secure the W in this duel. Masamune just stares at him in dead silence, keeping his stance completely rigid and unbreakable. Tossing the short sword in the air, the antagonist mocks the youth, declaring he's going to tank way more damage than just a few broken bones. Not understanding the point of all this roleplay, the hero coldly asks what the heck the enemy is even talking about. He adds that he could care less about the weapon the rival picks and asks for an ETA on when this villain monologue is going to end. Kuzume goes into full rage mode at the icy disrespect, grinding his teeth with deep fury over being completely dismissed. Gripping the sharp weapon with even more resolve, the antagonist preps to launch a brutal assault on the enemy. Screaming with rage, the antagonist charges and swinging the tool, trying to permanently delete the youth from the game. But the hero stands his ground and demands again that he release the girl and wrap up this crazy side quest. Sakura watches the intense scene with wide eyes, terrified that her rescuer's defense stats won't be high enough. Kuzume huffs in pure rage at the enemy's stubbornness and instantly rejects any attempt at a peaceful lobby. Taking a step forward, the red-haired commander hops off the desk and fully accepts the start of a hardcore brawl. Walking toward the youth with max arrogance, he warns he's going to fully dive into his childish little game. Flashing a wicked face, the attacker points the bladed weapon, making it crystal clear how he plans to fight this match. Masamune just tracks the opponent's movements with zero emotion, absolutely refusing to take even one step back. Twirling the sharp object through his fingers, the antagonist warns that this fight won't end with just a few light scratch animations. Showing zero stress, the hero coldly asks what the point is of dropping so many useless voice lines. He adds that he doesn't care about the weapon of choice and asks when this overly long speech is going to finally wrap up. Kuzum completely loses his mental stability at the trolling and glares at the enemy with lethal rage flashing in his eyes. Sprinting at the youth with extreme force, the attacker screams he's going to delete the kid's account right now. The antagonist laughs like an absolute maniac while rushing with the sharp object, demanding the opponent perish with regrets. But the counter hits instantly when the youth expertly raises his arm and parries the rival's cutting advance, locking his eyes on the shiny sharp metal. The MC realizes the insanely risky short range of the enemy's attack. The antagonist mocks him with a cruel smile, asking if the rival seriously thinks he can block him using such a low-tier physical build. Pressing the melee weapon toward the ground with extreme brute force, the attacker puts all his weight into breaking the enemy's guard. Masamune maxes out his strength stat to grip the rival's wrist, feeling the insane pressure generated by the clash. In a hardcore battle of raw DPS, the duo struggles desperately to gain control of the sharp weapon. The youth realizes the threat level is off the charts when he sees the sharp object getting dangerously close to his face. Popping a quick backstep, the MC manages to frame out of the danger zone and create a safe gap. He calculates in his head that his current low-level teenage body heavily nerfs his physical combat skills. Kuzum radiates a terrifying purple aura and laughs out loud, knowing he's got a massive buff in raw muscle power. Blinking fast, the youth decides he can't hide his true power level anymore from here on out. Suddenly, a massive surge of energy erupts from the young scout's body, leaving the opponent completely stunned in the middle of the room. The red-haired commander gets confused and terrified when he notices the severe vibe shift that just took over the lobby. Wrapped in a glowing blue combat aura, the hero radiates a completely different and totally terrifying presence. Rocking glowing red eyes, he points out that the rival's danger sense passives finally decided to actually work. Masamune coldly drops an apology and warns that from this frame forward he's turning off all mercy settings for this duel. Clenching his fists, the youth realizes his current teen body can't handle max precision animations. The youth decides he needs to speedrun this fight in a single blink, totally confusing the opponent with the call-out. Using god-tier speed, the MC moves like a literal shadow and completely vanishes from the antagonist's FOV. Kuzum's eyes bulge in pure shock when he entirely loses tracking on the enemy in the middle of the classroom. The attacker gets jump-scared by a lightning-fast strike and tries to process where that busted attack speed even came from. Totally confused, the red-haired commander tries to counter but realizes his hitbox is completely exposed. Masamune wins up a frontal strike with max power, entirely focused on permanently ending the 1v1 against his rival. Using aimbot precision, the youth lands a crushing blow dead center on the opponent's gut. The massive impact makes the antagonist spit out red liquid, completely knocking the wind out of him from the absurd force of the hit. Right then, the melee weapon slips out of the attacker's hands and gets yeeted across the room, leaving the opponent completely disarmed. Capitalizing on the moment, the hero admits he literally used the opponent's own blade as bait during the clash. Spamming a continuous chain of high-speed strikes, the young scout unplugs the antagonist without giving him a single frame to counter. Brutally launched backward, the red-haired commander smashes into the classroom floor, totally defeated. The downed antagonist stares at the ceiling in dead silence, unable to comprehend how he caught such an easy L. Feeling his HP drain, the antagonist blacks out, completely terrified that he just tried to PvP a literal combat beast. Right then, the terrifying legend of the Cruel Reaper spawns like a dangerous ghost standing right over the defeated enemy. Retsu Kuzum shakes in terror as his screen locks onto that horrifying figure standing right in front of him. Then the cutting tool swings down with zero mercy in the pitch black. Masamune Corona evaluates the match results with a completely blank expression. Suddenly, a panicked scream echoes through the jungle, demanding the event end immediately. Pinned to the dirt, an operative begs not to be sent to the lobby, claiming he was literally just following the dev's orders. In that moment, he swears he doesn't want the PvP smoke and promises to trade premium intel in exchange for mercy. But the fighter just stares down at him while aiming his firearm without showing a single frame of hesitation. The army guy screams in pure terror when he realizes his game over screen is loading up fast. With that, the final shot rings out with absolutely zero pity for the enemy. Masamune stands tall in the middle of the forest, completely surrounded by the logged-out bodies of his opponents. He zones out, trapped in dark flashbacks of the days he used to grind in the war zones. Suddenly, Sakura's shiracious voice shouts his name super loud, pulling the youth right back to the current server. The youth realizes he's still carrying his classmate in his arms right in the middle of the classroom. Sakura gets super awkward and shyly tries to pull away, her face blushing bright red. The red-haired boss Kuzum is left dumped on the floor, totally wiped out with zero stamina to counter after the epic beatdown. Seeing this, the leftover goons shake in absolute terror while the MC stands like a boss in the lobby. Without a second thought, the minions hit the sprint button down the hallway, desperately trying to escape the danger zone. Masamune casually walks through the empty lobby, watching his rivals speedrun away. Glancing at the knife left on the desk, the youth internally questions what he's even doing with his playthrough. Right then, he remembers how his own squad backstabbed him in his past life, leading to his elimination in combat. Because of that, the youth wonders if he's really just wasting his time throwing hands with school kids instead of actually grinding the main quest. Sakura runs toward him, begging him to pause for a sec, but the youth keeps pushing forward. Stopping at the door, the youth seriously warns her that it would be way better if she unfriended him right now. The young girl is completely stunned hearing such a freezing cold recommendation from her carry. The ex-mercenary points out that he's a cleaner and that literally zero good drops will come from partying up with him. Then he simply tells her to leave him alone, dealing massive emotional damage to the girl. Walking solo, Masamune realizes his current build is actually still pretty cracked for combat. With that, he decides the optimal strat would be to fast travel straight back to the war zone to finish his duty. Suddenly, fast footsteps echo through the quiet hall, interrupting his fast travel thoughts. Out of nowhere, young Sakura runs up and hugs him super tight from behind, completely blocking his exit. Masamune gets jump-scared by the random emote and freezes up completely at her move. Crying tears of joy, the girl mumbles her thanks, grateful that he clutched up and saved her again. The youth coldly asks her to let go, claiming he's definitely not the hero she thinks he is. But the girl looks up smiling through her tears and claps back that she doesn't care about his secret lore. Then with total confidence, she sweet-talks him, declaring the youth is her actual ultimate hero. Gently peeling her hands off, Masamune replies that she's got the wrong red and he was just returning aggro. The girl gets a bit awkward and shyly asks if that's really the only lore reason behind the rescue mission. At that moment, the youth pauses for a frame when he realizes his own excuse was actually patched out. He drops his head, dropping a genuine apology, and admits he should have engaged way sooner to stop the lobby from getting this toxic. The young scout adds that he noticed the bad vibe spreading in the class, and ignoring that escalating threat was a massive skill issue on his part. Sakura is super confused, not downloading a word he's saying while staring at the youth full of questions. Masamune zones in on his own thoughts about his ability to predict damage and the tiny sparks that trigger massive server wars. A visual of a future completely engulfed in flames spawns in his head, referencing the terrible global PvP event where he caught his original game over. The youth wonders if now that he respawned in the past, he can actually make moves in time to stop that horrific war patch from dropping. Sakura calls his name, softly curious about the youth's sudden FK silence. The youth realizes his true main quest and his actual duty are locked right here in this current era. Because of that, he turns around with a friendly face and drops a massive thank you to his classmate for the assist. The girl is totally lost, unable to decode the hidden meaning behind his dialogue, but she lights up when she spots a rare smile on the youth's face, a skin she had literally never seen unlocked before. Meanwhile, in a dark room, a bunch of monitors glow bright, showing an active surveillance stream. Insanely fast hands spam the keyboard with silent rapid-fire, and the replay of Kuzume's embarrassing L is pinned on screen with a massive defeat banner slapped across it. The mysterious spectator chills in his gaming chair and celebrates that his camping strat actually paid off. Revealed as the hacker Shun Himuro, he drops a toxic comment noting that partying up with the top-tier players is an absolute golden rule. He watches the security cam streaming Masamune and starts theory crafting his next play against him. On the stream, the young duo keeps chatting, totally clueless that they are being hardcore stream sniped. Suddenly, the MC's cracked danger sense procs, letting him know someone is spectating him right there. The youth looks directly behind him with laser focus, trying to spot the hidden cam. The hacker laughs like a troll, remembering that the MC's dad's factory is still going to be hit with massive lag spikes anyway. The sun comes up bright over the school building under a super clear lag-free blue sky. Inside the classroom, the students start logging in to get ready for another daily grind session. Chilling at his desk, Masamune theory crafts the strats he needs to dodge the massive global war event in the future. Suddenly, the redhead Kuzume spawns out of nowhere and throws his arm around the youth's neck, looking insanely hyped. The MC gets annoyed by the random close range emote and just replies with a totally deadpan greeting. Kuzume casually plops down on the desk and respectfully calls him Big Bro. The whole lobby watches this bizarre cutscene with max surprise and suspicion, totally weirded out by his new vibe. The redhead hypes up the hero's hidden stats and takes the chance to roast the epic fail of his old teammate Shinsuke. Suddenly, a loud salty scream interrupts the duo's chill chat. Shinsuke spawns in, furious, demanding to know why his overpowered carry just teamed up with the exact enemy they were targeting. Kuzume just casually stands up and claps back, saying he's got the whole meta read wrong. Using a high-speed animation, the redhead lands a brutal punch right on his former teammate's face, telling him to mute his mic. He coldly flexes the strongest player wins rule while staring down his opponent, who is now bleeding out on the floor. The redhead swears he's going to act as the MC's personal tank against any obstacles from here on out. Masamune accepts the party invite, suspiciously calculating that the youth is a decent DPS but absolutely not a trusted squad mate. Hitting a cocky emote, Kuzume points at himself and announces that today's romance side quest should also be left to him. Shinsuke gets completely lost by his partner's random dialogue and asks what the heck he's even yapping about. Then the redhead easily drags his goon by the collar completely out of the cafe's render distance, while the guy tries to complain. Holding the kid in a tight grip, Kuzume glares at him furiously and orders him to never ever step foot inside that lobby. Meanwhile, inside the cozy cave, the NPC waitress drops off Masamune and Sakura's loot on the table and says thanks for waiting. The strawberry dessert, heavily buffed with chocolate syrup, shines bright on the table, looking like an absolute top-tier consumable. With her eyes practically glowing, Sakura claps her hands together and hypes up how incredibly OP that dessert looks. Curious about the youth's total lack of hype, she asks if he's really going to skip the sugar buff right now. Masamune points out that sweets trigger a fast sugar spike, and because of that his mental stats would catch an unavoidable debuff later. Laughing at the youth's hardcore min-maxing, the girl nicely points out that he's always way too strict with his own build. But the young scout claps back, saying it's not about being strict, it's just that sticking to his own patch notes is the most optimal play. Right then, the girl moves a spoon with a piece of the dessert dangerously close to the youth's face, catching him completely off guard. Flashing a super happy emote, Sakura offers him a spoonful of the loot and suggests he just sample a single hit. Faced with his classmates spamming, Masamune stares at the spoon for a few silent frames before locking in his choice. Giving in to the sweet request, the youth takes the hit and tastes the dessert sample offered by his teammate. Hyped for an honest review, Sakura asks straight up if the consumable actually hit his taste buds right. Closing his eyes for a sec, the youth chews slowly and drops a calm affirmative nod. Next, Masamune realizes this is the first sweet consumable he's tasted in forever, and the flavor actually feels like a massive happiness buff. Showing a relieved and super happy face, the young girl celebrates landing a W and finally pleasing her classmate. Outside the caf window, Kuzume stream snipes the two of them chatting nicely while crouching in the stealth bushes. Sakura keeps chatting and spamming happy emotes at the table, completely blind to the sketchy spectator camping outside. Loving the cutscene, the redhead praises his big bro for unlocking a smile that he himself could never pull off. Shortly after, the two friends start trekking back down the busy sidewalk in the game's main city hub. Suddenly, the server's attention is yanked by an emergency broadcast dropping on a massive digital billboard on a skyscraper. The news anchor on the screen reports that a low-range PvP war just kicked off recently in the East African zone. Hearing the report about the casualties in the main city of that remote map, Masamune gets hit with a massive wave of anxiety. The broadcast details that local defense squads and armed griefers just started a brutal shootout, resulting in a ton of players getting sent to the lobby. Standing completely AFK in the middle of the crowd, the young scout stares at the giant screen, rocking a dead serious face. The footage shows the absolute chaos of streets on fire and NPCs suffering as this horrific gunfight kicks off. Masamune is 100% certain that this tiny spark is about to snowball into a massive global server war, which is the exact event he'd eventually get drafted into. Noticing the youth was totally zoned out, Sakura anxiously calls him, letting him know the crosswalk signal finally turned green. Snapping out of his intense lag spike, Masamune drops a quick bad for the delay and locks his focus back on the route. He calculates that just camping and waiting for the day he originally caught his game over is a trash strat, and he needs to make moves to stop the war from leveling up. Right then, the young scout starts crossing the crowded street, blending in with the massive wave of players. But the kid asks himself what a standard low-level Japanese student NPC could possibly do to change the patch notes of a global war. As they walk, a ton of players keep crossing the busy street, taking advantage of the green light under the afternoon sky. Feeling totally underleveled to deal with the current meta, he decides his mandatory first step is to start farming useful intel. Suddenly, young Sakura points excitedly at a shop on the side and suggests the duo pop in to check out some fresh skins. Stopping at the modern entrance of the shop, she happily asks the youth to try on a new jacket. Standing in front of the dressing room mirror, Masamune tests out the casual drip wearing a dark jacket his classmate picked out. Sakura totally hypes up the fit, but the youth complains the durability stats on the material are absolute garbage and it would tear instantly in a raid. At that moment, the girl holds up some thick dark pants, casually mentioning how much of a comfort buff that gear gives. Analyzing the new stiff leather jacket, the ex-mercenary figures that at least the skin looks like it has some fragmentation resistance. A little while later, the duo continues their chill stroll through the mall's corridors while hauling the loot they just bought. Sakura looks shocked and points at a super heavy-duty piece of armor with camo patterns, instantly grabbing the young scout's attention. Carrying some soft plushies they won from the arcade minigames, the two keep vibing and enjoying the chill afternoon. Chilling by the train station as the sun goes down, Sakura drops a massive thank you to the youth for carrying her through so many sketchy encounters. Not making a big deal out of it, Masamune calmly replies that the girl doesn't need to stress and that he literally just did what he felt like doing. The girl blushes slightly hearing the youth's blunt and straightforward answer, feeling her heart rate spike from the comeback. She softly considers that his rescue mission was purely something her teammate actively chose to do on his own. Keeping his classic stiff military posture, the young scout waits silently for the final goodbye on the sidewalk. Waving happily from a distance, Sakura says bye and locks in their school daily quest for tomorrow, while Masamune just nods. The morning drops full of sunshine with birds doing audio checks on the roof, bringing a peaceful vibe back to the server. Walking into his base's dining room, the youth drops a chill greeting to his dad, who was already fully logged in for breakfast. Sitting in front of a classic Eastern breakfast spread, Masamune seriously asks if the family's business servers are back online. The dad flashes a warm smile, explaining the shop did get hit with a cyber attack, but luckily the servers have fully stabilized. He adds that since they are a small indie company, they could have easily gotten wiped if the hacker hadn't dropped the attack. The young scout gives a quick nod to his dad's update, feeling a massive wave of relief hearing the confirmation. However, Masamune stares at his food in dead silence, knowing a top-tier hacker raid never just unplugs without causing real damage to the database. Soon after, the school gates open under a crystal-clear blue sky, welcoming the players logging in for another day of the academic grind. While swapping his kicks at the school lockers, Masamune gets cornered by the blue-haired student who asks about the server status of his parents' company. Shook by the unexpected name drop of his dad's business, the young scout slowly turns around to scope out the kid wearing glasses. Keeping his hands super relaxed in his pockets, the new classmate stands totally chill in front of the MC. Flashing a cocky smile, the mysterious teammate confirms the name Corona Tech and asks if that's really his dad's operation. The glasses kid officially introduces himself as Shun Himuro and warns that on the web he rocks a highly dangerous username. Rocking a super confident boss tier attitude, he waits for the hero's reply before dropping his biggest lore reveal. With a toxic smirk, he brags that he's the legendary Nithok and a pictier hacker with the skills to breach any mainframe. Masamune is mind-blown processing the data and finally realizes exactly who is standing right in front of him. The young scout instantly connects the dots that this kid was the actual admin behind the cyber attack that targeted his dad's factory. Totally chill, the hacker admits he got paid to run the unauthorized breach but didn't drop a heavy attack because he thought the strat was way too noob tier. Watching the digital invader's dramatic emotes, the ex-mercenary wonders to himself if this kid's mental stats are actually okay. Right then, Shun Himuro quick draws his smartphone out of his pocket to display some ultra-rare intel on the screen. The hacker pulls the screen close and seriously drops the bomb that the youth's family business seems to have direct links to some high-threat Yakuza griefers. Hearing the name drop of the region's most terrifying crime syndicate, the hero's eyes go wide in shock as he realizes the massive scale of the threat. The leak of brand new secret files on the digital screens proves that the youth's chill school playthrough is about to drastically shift again. Flashing the device's screen, Shun Himuro shows the youth a restricted contract that directly ties into his dad's business operations. In that moment, the digital file on the monitor reveals a shady backroom deal connecting Genwa Technologies to Corona Tech. Squinting at the tiny font, Masamune Corona whispers the name of the sketchy corporation written on the document. Curious about the contract's fine print, the youth asks himself if that company actually has direct admin ties to the Yakuza. The hacker calmly explains that the facility acts as a front for the Gendu crime syndicate, asking if he's ever seen patch notes about that faction. Right then, the Glass's teammate warns that despite the hidden lore, there's a massive risk his dad was strong-armed into signing a totally rigged deal. Realizing how hardcore the scenario is, the ex-mercenary stares at the screen looking dead serious as he processes the danger circling his family. Suddenly, the sharp edge of a thin blade is pressed right against Shun Himuro's throat, instantly canceling all dialogue in the room. The Glasses kid completely freezes when he feels the cold steel and sees the lethal threat literally inches from his face. Masamune Corona demands, using a terrifying voice filter, that he instantly spit out whether he's a trusted party member or just a brand new boss to fight on this route. Trying to keep his cool, the hacker replies he's neither of those options and strictly runs his digital gigs for the in-game currency. With that, he points out that getting interrogated is a brand new experience for him, but he usually only takes quests from organized crime to mine secret intel. Curious about the leaked file, the MC asks what the actual reason was for him to burn stamina just to show him that contract. He adds on asking what his true endgame is with this data, since he literally has 0 gold to pay him for the assist. The digital invader just shoots back that he can forget about the microtransactions and his only reason for doing this was purely out of curiosity. Suspecting the excuse is Cap, the youth repeats the word, making it obvious he doesn't buy that. Just curious. Flashing a confident smirk, the Glasses kid admits is actually super interested in the hidden power the MC is hiding in his build. Masamune Corona just stares at him with an icicled zero-tolerance look, showing exactly how done he is with this type of dialogue tree. In that moment, the hacker tries to nerf the heavy vibe by asking his teammate not to stare at him like a total psycho in the middle of the classroom. He reveals that the Gendu faction has been building aggro against him lately, so the ex-mercenary's raw power would be a top-tier carry in a guild war against them. Showing absolute zero chill, the hero states he has literally zero interest in catching aggro or starting an open lobby war against the Yakuza. The Glasses kid asks if he'd stick to that choice even knowing the syndicate connection would eventually end up deleting his dad from the server. Shook by the brutal lore drop, the young scout takes the mental damage and asks himself if his dad's HP is actually in the red. On the computer monitor, an image spawns of his dad engulfed in massive flames, foreshadowing the incoming threat of this insane questline. Shun Himuro doubles down, asking if he'd still back out knowing the company's shady ties might be directly linked to that accident. Remembering his past playthrough with Massive Salt, the youth accepts the painful reality and realizes the lore actually checks out in his head. An old flashback from his low-level days pops up, showing the kid crying his eyes out in front of his family's factory, getting totally consumed by an illegal fire event. He remembers his dad supposedly caught a permanent game over in the middle of that horrific fire raid years ago. Because of that, the youth realizes he always thought that event was just bad RNG, but now he highly suspects it was a rigged setup. Consumed by a silent fury, the ex-mercenary stares into the void with dark eyes as he realizes the disgusting trap set around his family. Suddenly, the soft sound of footsteps pulling up down the school hall grabs the attention of the duo chilling in the empty classroom. Keeping their eyes glued to the sliding door, the two boys try to scan if anyone is stream sniping their moves in that zone. Staying completely muted in the room, they hold max-level focus to avoid getting caught slacking in a sketchy spot. The teacher unlocks the door looking super strict and barks in a bossy tone that camping inside empty rooms is strictly banned for players. Scanning the interior, the teacher only sees a dead silent room and the curtains moving a bit because of the wind outside. Rubbing his head looking totally confused, the guy assumes all that sketchy noise was just a glitch in his own audio mix. He decides to lock the sliding door and goes back to his daily patrol route through the quiet halls of the school. Hiding inside a school locker, the hacker watches the teacher leave and confirms with a massive sigh of relief that the aggro has finally dropped. Stepping out right behind him, the hero notices a hidden passage behind the furniture and praises the big brain stealth spot. Showing off his secret research hub, the Glasses kid walks around the high-tech setup he modded to work as his command center. He admits he started using the abandoned room without admin perms but points out the teacher's patrol routes have gotten way more intense lately. The ex-mercenary asks if the teachers aren't literally just hunting him down, catching an annoyed comeback from his classmate. Continuing the chat, the digital invader explains that the reed-haired commander's sudden ban temporarily cooled the aggro of some local gangs. Right then he highlights that the lack of a hightier boss caused random low-level griefers to start going rogue and bullying without limits, and adds that the server stability at school has gotten so bad that there are even hardcore rumors about illicit item trading. Deep in thought, the hero calculates that a gang totally breaking down without its shot caller is a super common mechanic even outside of literal war zones. Back at the family dojo, the dad wraps up an insanely sweaty grind session and tells his heir to log off and rest a bit after burning so much stamina. Wiping his sweat with a clean towel, the kid stays absolutely muted while mentally theory-crafting how to bring up the family lore. The youth decides to pull his dad's focus by seriously stating he wanted to chat about a high-priority topic with him. Thinking fast, he figures that asking straight up about the crime syndicate would be way too risky, so he opts for a much more stealthy dialogue tree. So he casually volunteers to start grinding at work and help out with the daily quests at the family business. Surprised by the unexpected offer from his heir, the older guy asks what kind of patch notes triggered such a massive behavior swap. The kid points out that the current meta has been pretty rough on the shop and repeats his genuine desire to be useful wherever is needed. Touched by his heir's leveled-up maturity, the guy looks at him with a soft expression filled with total pride over the kid's honorable vibe. He drops a massive thanks for the offered support and honestly admits he's going to accept the kid's carry to reduce the heavy grind at the company. The next day, the classic front of the Kuroishi dojo features a giant banner advertising the recruitment of new low-level students from the area. Sitting by the door looking super bummed out, the youth cries internally, swearing that doing chores was definitely not the questline he was dreaming of. Suddenly, the arrival of a girl with incredibly long legs pulls the youth's focus as she politely greets the training center. Looking up surprised to recognize the random spawn, the hero whispers his classmate's name, sounding a bit unsure. Sakura Shiraishi shows up rocking casual everyday skins and greets the youth with an excited emote and a massive smile when she spots him there. Standing close to the youth, the girl shyly reveals her genuine goal to join the gym to learn some self-defense combos. Hitting him with a super hopeful look, she asks straight up if he'd be down to act as her exclusive combat coach in this lobby. Curious about the request, the hero silently calculates that a rare event like this never triggered in his previous school playthrough. The girl explains that since she got carried and rescued by him so many times recently, she decided she needed to unlock the ability to protect herself solo. He figures all of the girl's anxiety spawned from his own overthought plays but stops to calculate the consequences of his dialogue choice. Playing it totally cold, the youth states she doesn't need to learn PvP and points out that once they clear the school tutorial, she probably won't have any more coop sessions with him. Sakura Shiraishi goes into total shock and takes massive emotional damage hearing such a distant, freezing response from her favorite teammate. Suddenly, the heavy sound of unauthorized players stomping around echoes at the facility's door, paired with a hostile unknown voice. Cutting the dialogue off instantly, the duo quick turns toward the main entrance to ID the source of the noise. A squad of griefers holding wooden bats spawns into the room, planning to clear a gambling debt by clapping the MC. Terrified by the gang's arrival, the girl asks who these NPCs are while the ex-merc demands to know what the squad's actual objective is. The gang leader points his wooden weapon and warns they pulled up to put the classic dojo to the test, not to mention promising to take the girl as a hostage. The girl takes a step back, totally paralyzed by fear after hearing the coward's threat, shrinking away from the brutal PvP match about to kick off. Pulling a solid move, the hero extends his arm to shield his classmate while accepting the challenge issued by the uninvited guests. Locking into a flawless combat stance, the youth taunts the entire squad of bullies to just rush him all at once in a massive one. Cornered in the dojo, Masamune Corona stares down the uninvited guests as they brag that this gank was their master plan from the very start. Busting out insane mechanics, the youth unleashes a crazy combo of mid-air kicks that yeets the bullies out of bounds without giving them a single frame to block. Watching from afar, one of the bullies cries in terror about the youth's glitched power level as he defends the gym with absolute ease. Sakura Shiraishi watches the brawl in pure panic, shockingly realizing the bullies actually look like players from their exact same school server. Witnessing the embarrassing wipeout, the squad leader goes into panic mode and orders an immediate retreat before the lobby gets even worse for them. In that instant, the gang speedruns desperately down the street to escape the young fighter's aggro, who just watches them scatter in dead silence. With her stress levels finally dropping after seeing the uninvited guests bail, the girl notes they finally decided to log off and leave the gym alone for good. Meanwhile, a mysterious silhouette stream snipes the fleeing bullies from the shadows, calculating that basic low-tier griefers could never actually beat the youth. Walking back together on the sidewalk, Sakura Shiraishi drops a massive "thank you" for the assist and only gets a chill warning from him not to stress over the event. Right then, the young scout swears he will keep playing as her bodyguard from this frame forward so she never has to queue up for a fight again. Amazed by the guardian vow, the girl feels her heart rate spike and shyly nods while trying to decode the true meaning behind his dialogue. A bit later, the daylight fades into a super chill sunset over the massive city skyscrapers, dropping a fake safe zone vibe over the daily school grind. In the dark of a cramped alley, a duo of gang members meets up in stealth mode to theorycraft their next moves after taking that embarrassing L at the gym. Panicking, one of the guys suggests risking a brand new raid, but his partner claps back that facing a beast like that is impossible and they just need to farm the gold. Trying to contain his allies tilt, the other criminal begs for them to chill out so they can actually think straight before rushing into any dumb plays. Gripping a tiny package containing some sketchy white powder, the hoodie kid suggests they consume the item before locking in any decisions about the debt. The other partner accepts the trade with relief, believing this consumable is the best strat to wipe away the horrific stress of the moment. Suddenly, an icicled, terrifying voice spawns from the dark of the unlit alley, pulling the duo's focus out of nowhere. Retsukuzum spawns like a boss in the area and asks if the partners actually decided to disobey his patch notes and hunt the hero at the gym. Rocking eyes burning with rage, the red-haired commander repeats the question way more aggressively, proving he won't tolerate any cap in his lobby. Absolutely shook by the leader's presence, the duo of thugs tries to stutter out an excuse in a desperate attempt to save their own skins. Without giving them a single frame to explain, Kuzum drops a devastating strike that perfectly tags one of the minions in the face with extreme brutality. In that instant, the other thug screams in terror, seeing the absurd knockback of the hit that launched his partner straight into the dark alley's floor. Keeping his furious glare locked on the remaining criminal, the red-haired commander strictly orders him never to act so cocky in his presence ever again. Chaining his combo with pure savagery, the redhead grabs the second criminal by his clothes and violently yeets him into the alley ground. The hoodie kid watches all this assault, shaking with terror, realizing he's about to be the next target of his leader's unlimited rage meter. Busting out a high-speed merciless kick, Kuzum tags the last partner, instantly dropping him right next to the other wiped-out criminals. All three bullies are left collapsed and groaning in pain on the unlit alley floor, while the red-haired commander stands tall, totally owning the zone. Staring at his own hands, the redhead mutters angrily about the fact the squad had the audacity to lay a finger on the youth he worships like a big bro. Right then, the commander's focus is pulled by a tiny plastic baggie holding the white powder that dropped on the floor during the brawl's chaos. Bending down calmly, the red-haired commander grabs the tiny plastic item off the ground and asks himself what the heck this sketchy material could be. Suddenly, an unknown voice echoes in the zone, saying Retsukuzum's name, super seriously interrupting the kid's thoughts. Surprised by the sudden cutin, the youth spins sideways with a razor-sharp glare, trying to ID whoever is spectating him in the dark. The guest is revealed to be Komiya, the terrifying teacher in charge of student rules, making the gang leader super suspicious of this random encounter. Flexing a threatening vibe, the glasses-wearing teacher points at the item in the kid's hand and demands to know the deal with that sketchy little package. Panicking about a potential ban, Kuzum stutters in fear, trying to explain that the loot absolutely does not belong to his inventory. Flashing a terrifying look, the educator sarcastically asks if the item the youth is holding might actually be some sort of banned substance. The suited professor stands his ground against the cornered kid, repeating his demand for a crystal-clear explanation about what's suspiciously stashed in that baggie. Trying to backpedal, the redhead insists the educator has the wrong read and that he literally just found the plastic baggie dumped on the alley floor. Rocking a shady expression, the glasses guy pushes the topic aggressively, hinting that the kid is definitely linked to the illicit item market. A few days slide by, bringing the usual chaotic NPC energy under the bright sky of a new morning. Walking solo down the school hall, Masamune Corona calculates he needs to speedrun decoding the hidden lore and whatever his dad is definitely hiding. He recalls the service contract signed between his family's shop and the sketchy corporation that is highly suspected of hiding dark connections. Suddenly, a massive crash pulls the youth's focus when he sees a student violently yeeted onto the floor of the school hallway. Locking his eyes on the attacked kid, Masamune Corona is shocked to ID Shinsuke Hirakawa wiped out on the school floor after taking the hit. Furious at the random aggro, Hirakawa curses the attackers while trying to recover enough stamina to get up off the hallway floor. Two brand new criminals watch the scene, mocking him, holding an absolutely arrogant stance over their downed shieldless classmate. One of the bullies rudely demands the kid drop his cocky attitude, declaring that right now Hirakawa is nothing but Kuzum's useless little minion. When threatened with revenge using the clout of his politician dad, the attacker laughs it off, claiming he doesn't give a rip if he catches a permaban from the school. Laughing super loud at the downed kid's pain, the duo of bullies slowly walks away down the corridor, leaving their classmate behind in the dirt. Masamune Corona watches the whole situation in dead silence, pulling Hirakawa's focus, who stares at him in shock, realizing he was camping right there. In that moment, the glasses kid just keeps walking, ignoring the trash talk, while the goons leave the scene laughing at the chaos they caused in the server. Overwhelmed by a colossal wave of embarrassment from getting clowned like that, the boy screams in frustration and grinds his teeth with max hatred for his enemy. Sitting at his desk, the hero seriously reflects that the crime syndicate was highly likely involved in his dad's tragic server event. Staring at the glowing screen of his smartphone, the kid searches for reliable data means that can help him decode the hidden truth behind this rigged setup. The monitor displays deep dive stats on Manhwa Technologies, triggering the youth's drive to uncover exactly what deal the gang signed with the faction. Faced with a total lack of solid digital footprints, the ex-mercenary wonders if the ultimate big brain play is to just raid the syndicate's front company headquarters directly. Suddenly, a hand slams brutally onto the hero's desk, instantly interrupting his entire tactical theory crafting session. Looking up, totally chill, the youth comes facetto face with Hirakawa sweating bullets and completely out of breath standing right in front of him, looking incredibly stressed. With his signature chill vibe, the young scout just asks his enemy if he needs a carry or if he actually wants to drop some important dialogue. Glaring at the air with pure rage, Hirakawa complains about his rival's super relaxed attitude, claiming the enemy is just pretending the server hasn't gone completely toxic. The kid keeps venting and admits he should have banned the enemy from the city way earlier without needing to rely on Kuzum's DPS to do it. In that moment, the bully violently grabs the hero by the collar, demanding he make a move right now while asking if the youth wants to initiate a PvP duel right here. Showing absolutely zero fear, Masamune Corona coldly points out that trusting the wrong NPCs is a total noob mistake and only raw stats prove who's actually legend. An old voice line from his instructor pops into his head, reinforcing the idea that your own solo DPS is the only tool you can actually rely on in 1v1s. The youth continues his tactical breakdown in his head while keeping a dead stare, totally relaxed as the attacker holds him aggressively. The sweet visual of Sakura Shiraishi flashing a happy smile pops into his memory files, bringing a massive buff of peace and comfort to the young ex-smirk. Thinking about that, he concludes that the only players you can truly trust are exactly the ones you would even mind getting backstabbed by. Confused by the MC's absolute ice-cold vibe and iconic quote, Hirakawa takes a step back and screams in rage, realizing he literally cannot inflict the fear debuff on him. Full of anger, the kid roughly lets go of the enemy's collar and curses, furiously unable to handle his own lack of power against his chill classmate. Clenching his fists hard while staring at the ground, he cries out loud about making the massive misplay of trusting a high-threat player like Kuzum. He agonizes, confessing he never imagined the red-haired commander would end up diving so deep into that kind of banned item market. Hearing the mention of illicit trading, the ex-mercenary's eyes go wide in shock, wondering to himself if the gang leader really got involved with sketchy substances. The kid tries to look away, clearly regretting dropping that high-risk lure right in the middle of a heated argument with his enemy. Looking insanely serious, Masamune steps up to his classmate with a razor-sharp glare and demands he dump every single detail of that storyline right this second. Shinsuke Hirakawa, still totally shaken, just gives a hesitant nod to the demand forced on him. Because of that, the hero Masamune walks silently through the halls, heading toward an empty lobby. Reaching a locked locker door, he taps a secret code to signal he's at the spawn point and gets the green light to enter. Right then, Masamune unlocks the safehouse door and carefully steps into the hidden zone. Chilling in his gaming chair, the glasses hacker Shun Himuro notes the youth is getting really good at stealth mechanics and asks if anyone spotted him. The young ex-merc confirms he left 0 digital footprints, and the hacker wants to know if some random event triggered this sudden visit. Then Masamune drops the intel that he heard rumors claiming the red-haired Commander Kuzum ended up messing with banned items. Curious about the datamine, Himuro instantly asks if their classmate hasn't just walked blindly into a rigged trap. The hacker calculates that Kuzum is a bit of a noob, but if he was going to mess with that stuff, he would have done it when he was the admin, and he wouldn't just buy loot from randoms. The data specialist adds that the redhead caught a suspension because there was 0 physical evidence, since if he was actually guilty, the server mods, the cops would already be involved. The young scout nods deep in thought, accepting his classmate's big brain logic. Finding the youth's anxiety weird, Himuro asks what the deal is, since the MC definitely doesn't have the profile of someone who'd care about Kuzum. Masamune denies it and explains that if the redhead actually has ties to the Yakuza, he wants to initiate a connection, but the hacker warns that illicit substances are not the Jinduke's meta. Because of that, the MC gets confused, not fully downloading the info, and asks if the syndicate really operates like that. Himuro explains there's a super high drop rate for that theory, since the Jinduke faction wouldn't let another squad vend in their zone without getting their admin approval first. The glasses kid calculates that farming that intel would take a massive amount of time and suggests that running an unauthorized hack on the front company would be a way faster speedrun. The hacker thinks the strat sounds fun, but warns it's highly likely a useless grind, since the gold logs and data files have almost certainly been scrubbed already. On the PC monitor, multiple command lines and encrypted data start scrolling at lightning speed. The glasses kid brags he has the skills to bypass the firewall, but points out this quest would also drain a massive chunk of his playtime. Masamune points out that the rumors about the supposed link to banned items are already spreading like a virus through the entire school server anyway. Using a stealth recording gadget, the duo watches the sketchy animations of 2 students closing a highly suspicious trade in the school's common area. Because of that, the young ex-merc concludes it would be way more optimal and fast to focus all their stamina on tracking down the exact drop source of that item. Hiding in the school's narrow hallway, the duo of students tries to haggle a price for the loot with the hoodie dealer. The hoodie vendor aggressively warns that if they refuse to drop the required gold, he'll just trade the item to a different player. With 0 other dialogue options, the 2 students finally cave to the pressure and agree to pay the exact amount demanded by the sketchy merchant. Heavy solid footsteps echo on the sandy floor of the hallway, announcing the random spawn of an unknown player in the zone. Masamune suddenly pops up in the corridor and orders the hoodie dealer to instantly reveal the spawn location of that sketchy item he just bought. The glasses hacker tailing the hero goes into full panic mode, yelling and calling his teammate a complete noob for the reckless aggro pull. The hoodie vendor instantly IDs the hero and gets completely terrified when he crosses paths with him in the lobby. The duo of students realizes they got caught by a spectator and decides to hit the sprint button out of there in pure panic to dodge any ban hammers. Masamune stares at the hoodie guy and remembers his character model as the exact same NPC who tried to raid his family's gym a few days ago. The hoodie dealer shakes in terror, realizing he's facetto-face with the kid who solo-wiped his entire squad with absolute ease. Clenching his fists tight, the ex-mercenary drops a final dialogue prompt demanding the enemy dump every single piece of lore he knows for good. Sweating ice water from the fear of catching physical damage, the bandit realizes he has literally zero chance of logging out of this zone without taking a hit. The criminal throws his hands up in a total surrender emote and swears he has zero intention of initiating PvP, promising to drop all the intel in his inventory. The MC shows he's satisfied with the NPC's fast cooperation, maintaining a completely chill yet highly threatening vibe. Suddenly, a razor-sharp glare cuts through the dark from the top of the wall, signaling that the party is being heavily stream-sniped by new enemies. Multiple unidentified players start vaulting over the school's highest wall, dropping into the hallway fast and silent to completely surround the squad. The glasses hacker goes into absolute despair when he notices these dangerous new challengers spawning right in the middle of the narrow hallway. The hoodie dealer also freaks out, screaming in panic, having zero clue who these mysterious new spawns actually are. Masamune clocks the aggressive maneuvers around him and swaps his stance into max alert mode to face the incoming threat. A squad of 5 beefy enemies rocking dark skins completely traps the 3 kids inside the hallway, blocking every possible extraction point. The MC casually scans the map, while the hacker hiding behind him shakes when he realizes the enemies have a massive numbers advantage. The ex-merc notices that despite looking like basic street griefers, some of them have super tanky builds and are clearly spec'd for melee combat. The youth looks back and bluntly asks what level of actual PvP experience the hacker has, absolutely terrifying his glass-wearing teammate. The hacker screams in despair, claiming he dumped all his skill points exclusively into the intelligence tree, and the youth just nods at the answer. Suddenly, one of the tankiest bullies rushes in at max speed, trying to land a brutal haymaker right on Masamune's face. The glasses kid screams, desperately telling the hero to pop his shield, but notices the MC looks like he doesn't care about the ping at all. Using an absurdly fast and smooth animation, Masamune flawlessly frames the rival's direct attack. The attacker tries to throw another heavy punch, aiming low, but completely whiffs the hitbox again thanks to the martial artist's crazy reaction time. Flashing a cocky smile, the attacker thinks he can easily stunlock the youth just by abusing the massive size difference in this matchup. The MC dodges effortlessly and calculates that the rival definitely has some actual martial arts passives equipped. But the rival starts spamming high-speed punches, desperately trying to tag the youth in the middle of the corridor. Masamune notices the massive gap in size and attack range and decides to switch up his combat strat to permanently delete the threat. Exploiting a gap in the enemy's guard, the young warrior decides to drop the honorable gameplay and lands a precision low kick right on the rival's legs. The attacker lets out an ear-piercing scream of absolute agony as he takes the raw critical damage that completely breaks his poise. With the enemy dropped to his knees from the massive debuff, Masamune dashes at light speed, leaving the rest of the criminals completely terrified by his icicled gameplay. From a distance, the hacker watches the scene, absolutely shook by the MC's zero mercy playstyle against the squad. Suddenly, a different massive bully grabs the hacker roughly from behind, seizing the glasses kid who has zero abilities to defend himself solo. Terrified, the teammate screams that he doesn't even know the PvP controls, but the attacker rudely orders him to mute his mic and not even try to escape his grip. In that moment, the bully raises a heavy blunt weapon to bash the trapped hacker's skull, who just closes his eyes, waiting for the game over screen. The bully laughs out loud, sarcastically asking what his game plan was, right as an empty metal soda can comes flying at max velocity straight at his face. Masamune spawns standing tall holding another soda can and coldly announces that this criminal is officially the final boss left standing in the lobby. The thrown projectile hits the bully's face with aimbot precision and absurd force, forcing him to drop the kid instantly due to the stun damage. Calming down, the hacker drops to his knees, thanking him for the clutch save, while the hero calculates that the enemy squad was completely uncoordinated in team fights. He scopes out all 5 criminals wiped out and unconscious on the floor of the narrow school hallway after his rapid-fire counter combo. Suddenly, Masamune notices the hoodie dealer used the combat chaos to try and speedrun away from the zone. The hoodie dealer sprints desperately toward the hallway's extraction door, trying to break line of sight from the young fighter's deadly gaze. Without hesitation, the hero dropkicks another empty soda can with max accuracy straight into the runner's path to cancel his escape animation. The metal item cuts through the air at insane speed, spinning wildly under the massive buff of the young ex-merc's kick. The projectile grazes the runner's head and smashes violently into the hallway's brick wall, triggering a sharp sound cue that terrifies the kid. Thinking he survived by pure NG, the bandit sighs in relief, but suddenly notices Masamune's freezing aura spawning right behind him. Absolutely panicking, the rulebreaker backs into the wall, begging for mercy and swearing he doesn't have any of those bullies on his friends list. Crying tears of pure terror, the guy admits he's just a mid-tier middleman in the market and that the trades usually go down in the storage lockers of the old school building. The glasses kid realizes he didn't have cameras set up in that specific zone, while the hero decides his next main quest is to go investigate those lockers. Masamune grabs the dealer tight and orders him to drop a waypoint to the locker area. Because of that, the duo starts moving in stealth mode through a route surrounded by thick jungle assets. Hiding behind a tree trunk, the teacher Komiya stream snipes their moves, noticing the youth actually pinged his location. Crushed soda can is shown tossed on the dirt floor right in the middle of the dry leaves in the zone. From a distance, the teacher watches them, thinking that even after renting pro-tier griefers, they still couldn't handle the youth. The hero's serious gaze locks onto the path ahead while he continues his silent escort mission. Grinding his teeth in pure rage, the educator wonders to himself what the mysterious Masamune Kurona's true username really is. Just ahead, the massive front of the abandoned school building loads in under the clear, lag-free sky. Stepping into the unlit hallway, the terrified bandit points out locker number 13 for this raid. The locker's metal door is completely wrecked and bent, proving it caught some recent interaction spam. Without wasting time, the hero decides to pop open the locker while the glasses hacker just nods, but the exact frame he reaches out to unlock it, a harsh voice demands to know what the squad is doing in this zone. Suddenly, the teacher spawns like a massive boss right behind the kids in the middle of this desolate hallway. Keeping his cool at max, the young scout turns around and coldly replies they aren't running any major events. The teacher steps closer, looking super suspicious, and mocks their decision to path all the way to this isolated abandoned map. Using a terrifying voice filter, Kamiya gets closer to Masamune and asks if there's hidden loot stashed in the locker. The educator pops the door open with an evil smile while the glasses kid lets out a surprised audio cue. Faced with the teacher's aggro, the hero keeps his icicled posture while his teammate sweats bullets, consumed by pure terror. Amazed, looking inside the inventory space, the glasses guy notices the locker is literally just filled with trash. Inside the metal box, multiple curled papers and an 18's magazine are just dumped there. Flashing an ironic smile, Kamiya grabs the magazine and coldly orders the students to fast travel back to class. The hero watches the cutscene without making a sound and internally calculates that the timer hasn't hit 0 for them to back down yet. Right then, the teacher starts turning around to leave, carrying the confiscated loot under his arm. But the young scout pauses him, reminding the teacher that he was the one who brought up Pathing to this exact building. Then the youth asks straight up what actually pulled the discipline admin all the way out to this dead zone. The guy instantly cancels his walk animation and scowls, clearly super triggered by the kid's disrespect. Behind him, the hacker and the bandit shake in fear, realizing the tension between the two just spiked hardcore. Flashing a sarcastic laugh, the admin gets ready to drop a believable lore excuse for the students. He claims he's literally just running a standard patrol route because the student player base's behavior has been getting way more toxic lately. However, the educator grips the magazine with so much force that he actually tears the page, leaking his hidden rage meter. Stepping closer, wrapped in a terrifying aura, Kamiya orders the kid to show some respect when using voice chat with him. Rocking an insanely dark look, the educator demands the boy address him exclusively with his proper teacher. Masamune Kurona just stares at him with absolute zero chill, completely refusing to trigger any fear animations. Terrified of catching a ban, the hacker jumps into the middle of the clash and apologizes, claiming his teammate is just a massive noob. Because of that, the partner drags the hero toward the building's exit while the bandit speed follows their route. Outside, the glasses youth complains that they absolutely should start PvP with the server admin. The teammate adds a warning that any troll behavior in that zone can easily trigger a suspension ban. Confused by the drop, the hacker asks if there really wasn't any banned loot inside the metal box. The hoodie bandit furiously claps back, swearing he did drop any fake lore and actually saw the merch stashed in that slot. But the ex-merc calmly reveals there was actually a stack of currency hidden in the middle of the locker's trash. A flashback visual of the locker shows the cash, confirming the microtransaction made by some mystery buyer. Adjusting his glasses, Shun Himuro praises his partner's hire's vision but points out that this data alone doesn't prove the illegal trade event. Masamune explains the real tracking clue was the intense smell of burnt synthetic material his senses picked up. The memory of the abandoned storage box pops back into his head, where the mystery of the illegal shop keeps unlocking. The hero focuses his determined gaze, remembering that unforgettable scent that confirms his data means. In his military save files, Masamune remembers the time he ran into Captagon out in the war zones. That buffing substance is heavily spammed in combat zones, acting as a cheap low-tier chemical consumable. Shocked by the lore drop, the hacker asks if the item actually has that unique scent profile. He zones out, trying to theorycraft what kind of dark backstory the hero is running to have such high-tier knowledge on this subject. Locked in, the hero confirms the trade is going down in the area and asks if his partner can plant a recording gadget. The glasses kid accepts the strat but warns they need to use max stealth when planting the device. Masamune calculates that teacher Komiya is highly likely playing a major role in all this sketchy server activity. Hearing the teacher's name, Shun Himuro squints his eyes, showing he fully downloaded the need to keep him on radar. In the dark hallway, Komiya stands completely FK in front of the storage boxes, staring into the empty space. Gripping a stack of in-game currency with a satisfied look, the guy celebrates his economic W for the night. The educator flashes a greedy smile while savoring the gold he farmed through his toxic side hustles. Because of that, it becomes crystal clear that the metal box is literally an exchange hub and the teacher is the server admin running it. Knowing how serious this is, Masamune warns his teammate that they're going to have to keep a hyper-focused watch on that guy. While counting his gold in the dark, Komiya shows absolute joy at the progress of his corrupt questline. The next day, the student grind reboots, with players walking calmly toward the school map. Walking next to Masamune, Sakura Shiraishi is completely confused to see an abnormal amount of activity at the main gate. In front of the school entrances, multiple students are stuck in queue, being forced through a hardcore inventory check. Holding a notepad, teacher Komiya leads the scan, greenlighting students to enter the lobby. Spotting the duo approaching, the teacher swaps his expression, dropping into a much heavier icicled face. Hitting a polite emote, the two youths do a slight bow to show respect. The admin steps closer and toxically complains that the server rules have been way too soft lately. In that moment, the man clears the hero to proceed to class but glares at young Sakura with some seriously dark intentions. Masamune walks through the checkpoint without stopping, keeping his eyes narrowed because he highly suspects the educator's sketchy behavior. Locking his cruel gaze, Kamiya laser focuses on the details of the classmate's character's skin. Using an admin voice, he points at the girl's skirt, claiming her gear is way too short for the server rules. The girl gets completely confused, not understanding the hit, and shyly complains that her gear is standard issue. Flashing an evil smirk, the teacher suggests running a direct measurement check in his private office just to be sure. Busting out a violent and threatening animation, the glasses guy grabs the girl's arm to force her to follow his path. Being dragged through the school's common area, the girl tries to spam the struggle button until a confident voice echoes from behind, ordering him to pause. Komiya instantly cancels his animation and turns his camera backwards, showing a face of absolute rage. Right then, Masamune steps up to the admin, pointing out that he claimed Sakura's skirt was too short, forcing the glasses guy to ask what exactly the glitch is with that claim. Because of that, the youth breaks down the stats, stating Sakura's gear is exactly 52 centimeters long, and compared to the other players, her outfit is actually classified as long. As dead silence drops on the server, Sakura's skirt sways under the focused gaze of everyone in the lobby, who are all clearly sweating at the scene. Intrigued, Komiya asks if the kid actually measured it directly, but Masamune claps back with absolute confidence that he has the passive ability to calculate measurements just by looking. The youth explains that a hired operative trains to calculate distances with higher accuracy in combat zones using their personal melee weapon as a base measurement. Faced with such a hyper-specific and weird lore dump, Sakura gets insanely embarrassed, having no clue why he's a literal encyclopedia on her measurements. But the educator counters, saying the total length doesn't matter. What matters is the distance above the knee joint, since leg dimensions vary depending on the player model. Trying to dodge the worst ending, Sakura desperately begs him to mute his mic, but Masamune sticks to his big brain logic and gets ready to drop the exact pixel measurements of the girl's legs. Because of that, the youth confirms that if the issue is strictly the gap from the joint to the hem, the other students have a way bigger gap than her. Nearby, some girls eavesdrop on the debate and get super uncomfortable with the weird hyperspecific direction this academic argument took. At that moment, an awkward mute debuff takes over the common area while everyone waits for the strict admin's final ruling. Super salty that he can't win a debate against raw stats, Komiya drops the penalty and harshly orders the duo to march back to the grind. Walking toward the building, Sakura drops a massive "thank you" for the assist, but the youth replies with total apathy, claiming the event wasn't a big deal. Blushing hard, she shyly asks if he could possibly delete her leg measurements from his memory files. Feeling super awkward about his teammates' request, the youth just replies that he'll try his absolute hardest to wipe that data from his cache. A bit later, inside the classroom, teacher Komiya randomly spawns in and orders everyone to put their backpacks on the desks for a full inventory wipe check. Tilted, the students start complaining loudly, pointing out the school has literally never run a random unannounced scan like this before. The teacher claps back, saying he also wishes this was mandatory, keeping his voice firm to mute the lobby's complaints. In that moment, the guy reveals there are hardcore rumors about banned loot circulating in the server and announces the scan will start from the front desks. Soon the first bag gets opened on the desk, dropping only standard notebooks and basic academic items. Taking slow steps, the admin approaches Sakura's desk, who is waiting super nervously because the guy is way too close. Flashing a toxic smile, the man sweetly commands the girl to unlock her bag so he can start scanning her personal inventory. Super tense, the girl just nods shyly and gets ready to follow the admin's direct prompt. With shaky hands, she slowly unzips her bag under the focused, completely unchill stare of the strict admin. In that moment, the glasses guy jams his hand into Sakura's bag, hardcore searching for any sketchy loot. Suddenly, the teacher fakes a jumpscare animation, pretending to find something weird, and loudly asks what this hidden item could be. Right then, he pulls a tiny plastic baggie containing that sketchy white powder out of her inventory, dropping a massive heavy vibe on the lobby. Seeing the sketchy item get pulled from her loot, Sakura gets hit with a total stun debuff, completely unable to process the cutscene playing out in the room. Rocking a serious face, the educator calls the girl's username and demands to know the exact lore behind that banned substance in her inventory. Panicking, the girl cries, swearing she's never seen that item before, but Komiya coldly orders her to save the excuses for the admin room. Terrified whispers start popping off in the classroom as the other students wonder if that item is actually illegal powder. Being dragged into the hallway by the teacher, Sakura cries out loud, begging for a carry and swearing this whole setup is a massive glitch. Witnessing the dirty play, Masamune jumps out of his seat looking dead serious, consumed by a massive silent rage. Without hesitating a frame, the young ex-merc speedruns out of the classroom to chase down his teammate who just got falsely banned. However, a different teacher chilling in the hallway strictly orders the youth to rubberband back to his seat immediately. Flashing his Warzone death glare, Masamune stares the teacher down menacingly, showing absolutely zero intention of following that command. Triggered by the student's toxic behavior, the teacher grabs his shoulder and screams, demanding he sit down right now. In that moment, the kid uses his high agility to break the grapple and continues his sprint down the school hall, leaving the furious teacher behind. He completely ignores the shouting echoing through the server and just curses in his head, hyper-focused on reaching the admin room as fast as possible. Meanwhile, in the student discipline office, Komiya drops a toxic smile and asks himself out loud what he's going to do with this vulnerable NPC. The girl cries and repeats that the loot isn't hers, but the educator sarcastically claps back, pointing out he is fully aware of that fact. Right then the guy brutally reveals he was the actual author who planted the banned material in the girl's inventory. Hearing the teacher's toxic confession, Sakura goes into absolute shock at how deep the cruelty and sickness of this guy goes. With a shaky voice, she angrily asks what possible reason he has to pull such a dirty strat against an innocent student. The educator just sighs with disrespect and notes that the girl really is a total noob for failing to realize his true endgame. Rocking an unblinking, terrifying stare, the guy gets way too close to the girl and coldly orders her to unequip her school skin right there in the room. Frozen in terror by the sick demand, Sakura just lets out a desperate whimper, totally unable to input any movement commands. Flashing a face of absolute evil, the educator corruptly promises that the time has come to give her an exclusive student tutorial. The girl backpedals, shaking against the wall texture, while the attacker reaches out toward her to initiate his horrific Zero-Honor attack. At that exact moment, Masamune is still speedrunning up the school stairs, desperately trying to find the lobby where his teammate got dragged. He angrily calculates that he doesn't want to waste a single extra second, knowing every wasted frame could permanently damage Sakura's playthrough. Spotting the door to the discipline room, the youth repeats his mental vow that he'll never leave her solo in a room with that corrupted player. Using a brutal heavy strike, the ex-mercenary absolutely destroys the office door, screaming his teammate's username at the top of his lungs. But when he scans the room, the youth is jump-scared to find the lobby completely empty, with zero trace of them anywhere. Staring at the empty room, lit only by the afternoon sun, the dead silence proves the teacher dragged the girl to a different safe house. Consumed by rage after realizing he lagged behind, he desperately asks himself where the guy dragged the innocent girl. Suddenly, the device in his pocket starts ringing, and the youth quick answers it when he realizes the ping is from his hacker teammate. Masamune tries to report the girl's missing status, but his partner cuts him off, instantly revealing the victim was dragged toward the school's abandoned building map. On the other end of the line, the hacker angrily spams his keyboard and curses at the discipline admin's absolute lack of honor. On his PC monitor, the security cams hacked by the partner are streaming the teacher holding the girl hostage in the remote building live. Himuro demands the youth pop his sprint ability and go as fast as possible before he triggers the worst ending, getting a fast, serious confirmation from the hero. The hacker curses the teacher in his head, fully aware that calling the server mods, police, or other teachers right now would be an absolute disaster for the squad. Meanwhile, the dark hallway of the old building stays dead silent under the 2047 surveillance of the cameras planted by the partner. Sprinting with everything he has around the outside of the school map, Masamune focuses 100% of his vision on reaching the isolated zone before the timer runs out. Getting close to the abandoned building, the young warrior suddenly spots a glitch in the matrix and slows his walking speed to scan the environment. Hiding behind the nearby jungle assets, the youth scopes out the main entrance of the old building to plan a safe infiltration route. Using voice comms, he warns the hacker about some unidentified NPCs guarding the entrance, giving his glasses teammate a massive surprise. At the front gate, a massive squad of armed griefers is camping the zone, completely body-blocking any normal attempt to push in. The squad of attackers keeps a toxic and threatening stance on the building's steps, fully prepped to block any invader. Locking his eyes on the security, Masamune IDs them as the exact same delinquents who were running the illegal item market a few days ago. In his digital hub, the hacker deduces the guards are partying up with the teacher, and decides he's going to have to review the VODs later. The hero asks if there's an alternate path, calculating that his only viable strat is to smash a window to successfully pull off the infiltration. The hacker warns over comms that making noise while breaking the glass is a terrible idea, since if the villain detects the breach, he can react instantly. Flashing a razor-sharp glare, the ex-mercenary disagrees and confidently states that the only strat right now is literally just reaching them before the villain can even input a command. He asks for the exact coordinates of the hostage, and the partner instantly replies, confirming the teacher is camping the girl in the final room on floor 3. Right then, Masamune scopes the building from the ground, locking onto the third-floor window, where Sakura is being held captive. Then the youth crouches on the grass when he spots a metal item stuck in the dirt near the school's outer wall. A small gardening shovel is buried in the wet soil, right next to the bushes surrounding the map. Over comms, Masamune asks if there's any ledge on the wall he can use to boost up, completely mind-blowing the hacker. The digital invader goes into total shock when he realizes the hero's insane strat is to literally wall climb straight up the building. Using max agility, the youth pulls out a sharp-tipped tool to help him scale the vertical surfaces. Inside the storage room, the door is still heavily barricaded from the inside. Sakura tries to backpedal, dragging herself across the cold floor, while the teacher walks her down with a terrifying vibe. Panicking, the girl tries to unlock the window to use as an escape route, but realizes the glass is completely hardlocked. The discipline admin sarcastically orders the girl to drop the struggle and permanently unequip her skin. Sakura swears she's going to ping the server mods police right now, but the guy just dares her to try and find any comms device. He reminds her that the entire class server is fully convinced that the illegal loot belonged exclusively to her. The girl goes into shock and total confusion at the fake lore dropped by the corrupted admin. The teacher flexes the tiny plastic baggie holding the white powder that he planted in her inventory. He adds that her fingerprints will be all over the outside if the cops ever scan the item. Sakura is horrified when she realizes the massive scale of the trap designed to get her permanently banned. He points out her spawn creator's parents will be devastated and she'll be the only one catching massive heat for this. She drops her head, realizing she has 0 items to prove she's innocent against these fake reports. Suddenly, the youth violently grabs the plastic bag, ripping the item straight out of the teacher's fingers. In that moment, she screams that the only piece of evidence with her fingerprints is exactly that little baggie. Because of that, the girl figures that if she successfully deletes the item, there won't be a single log left against her. The teacher boils with rage at the girl's unexpected counter. He aggressively grabs the girl and screams, asking if she doesn't care about her family, pressuring her using his Yakuza admin backup. The young girl lets out a groan of pain from the attacker's heavy pressure, desperately trying to escape using any strat she can. The villain lets out a cruel laugh, realizing his prey is completely vulnerable to his power level. The attacker shreds the girl's upper gear while she screams in pure panic, blaming herself for everything going wrong on the server. Suddenly, the room's window shatters into a million pieces after taking an absurdly heavy impact from the outside map. The duo instantly cancels the brawl and stares at the broken glass with extreme shock and confusion. The student admin backpedals in shock, asking what the heck just triggered such a massive audio cue. The young ex-merc spawns in, diving through the broken window with absolute flawless agility and 0 fall damage. Sakura drops tears of relief when she IDs Masamune's face, realizing he spawned in to save her from the dark again. Masamune stands firm in the study room, radiating a heavy dark aura of absolute rage. The youth's gaze is lithely serious as he locks 100% of his aggro onto the dishonorable attacker. The teacher demands to know how the kid glitched his way up the building through the window, and the boy replies he just wall climbed using the exterior textures. He points out that this kind of climbing is basically a casual tutorial quest compared to the military's hardcore grind. The educator is shook, realizing the kid's threat level is insanely higher than the most feared griefers in the school. Masamune ignores the guy's panic and brings up the fact that the enemy mentioned having direct admin support from the terrifying Yakuza. The teacher confirms it with a toxic scoff, warning that if the kid even lands a hit on him, the crime syndicate won't hesitate to counterattack. The young scout just whispers that he downloaded the threat without showing a single pixel of fear. Popping his knuckles with intense force, he calculates that just spamming the teacher with a massive beatdown is enough to secure a W against the Yakuza. The student admin goes into full panic mode when he realizes his threat failed to inflict even a single stack of fear on the kid. Terrified, the guy backpedals, screaming, asking if the kid knows how dangerous it is to PvP with mobsters, but the youth swears he couldn't care less. The hero's icicled stare signals that the friendly dialogue phase is permanently over. Grinding his teeth with deep hatred, the teacher curses the enemy, calling him an arrogant brat. Consumed by total rage, he screams that lower-level players should just obey commands and tank exploitation until their playthrough ends. Masamune lands a devastating critical strike that perfectly tags the corrupt admin's face. Tanking the massive shockwave of the hit, the guy gets launched backward, totally unable to input even the smallest defensive command. The ex-mercenary thinks to himself that no real top-tier soldier risks their own life passing the quest to a leader who has 0 shot-calling skills. The attacker drops, violently smashing his head against the classroom floor while letting out high-pitched screams of agony. Overcomes, the hacker sounds amazed, noting the MC definitely didn't hold back any DPS on that strike. Grabbing the opponent by his clothes, Masamune states the duo needs to farm as much data from him as possible. Himuro offers to run the interrogation quest, but the hero declines, swearing he's got the right skills to handle this event. The digital invader flexes his title, bragging as the server admin of the digital world, and just asks for the villain's smartphone to rip the data. Right then, the young scout loots the device from the defeated unconscious enemy, accepting his partner's carry offer. The youth announces that the mission is finally cleared and declares it's time to fast travel out of there before more mobs spawn in the zone. Turning his camera backward, the youth notices the girl is still stuck in a trauma debuff, completely paralyzed on the floor. Worried, Masamune calls her by her username with a super chill vibe, moving slowly to try and heal his friend's mental HP. He reaches out his hand, offering an assist so the girl can finally get up off the freezing floor of the abandoned building. With a shaky gaze, the girl apologizes if she caused any lag for the youth and admits she literally cannot process the entire cutscene. The MC just stares at her in dead silence, fully understanding the massive emotional debuffs currently affecting the girl. Sakura looks up at him with watery eyes and asks straight up what his true identity actually is behind this entire crazy storyline.